Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Half Moon Bay City Council for January 20th, 2026. As a reminder, if you are joining this meeting via Zoom, you can still make public comment. During any public comment portions, attendees may use the raise your hand feature and will be called upon and unmuted when it is your turn to speak. If joining by phone, use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute. We also have Spanish interpretation services available in person and via Zoom this evening. They include On-Point Language Solutions is in the back left corner if anyone needs assistance with interpretation services. On-Point will now provide information on how to receive interpretation services if you are in need of them. Nicholas will come and make a little presentation. Thank you, Nicholas.
Turn it on.
Ahora sí. Para todos los que necesitan interpretación en español, en su pantalla tienen en la barra de abajo un símbolo de un globo terráqueo, un mundo, y tienen que hacer clic ahí y buscar la opción de idiomas, languages en inglés, y escoger la parte de español. For everyone, para todos los que están aquí y que necesitan interpretación, tenemos en la parte de atrás audífonos para poder compartir con ustedes y que puedan escuchar directamente la sesión en español. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Could I please have a roll call of the council?
Yes, I'm already starting out, that's why, darn it. Councilmember Nagengast?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Here.
And Mayor Ruddick?
Here.
All council members are present this evening.
Thank you so much. Item 2 is approval of the agenda. I am recommending to the council that we move item, what is it? Excuse me.
To the mayor, we should do the Pledge of Allegiance.
We'll get there. Yeah. I would like to move item 10B up in front of 10A. 10B is updates on the residential rent stabilization program and residential rental registry program. If the council agrees, could someone make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
And Mayor Ruddick?
Yes, thank you
Motion
so
carries.
much. Please all rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Excuse me, chair is too tall. All right, so the next item of business is item 3, proclamations and presentations. There are no proclamations tonight, but at this time we'll get a brief presentation from Joshua Hugg with a Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District.
It's actually going to be from Zoe this evening.
Okay, I'll do my best to impersonate Josh,
Okay.
who's with me this evening, our Governmental Affairs Program Manager. My name is Zoe Kirstein Tucker. I am President of the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District Board of Directors. The purpose of our presentation tonight is to give you a whirlwind tour of the district and what we're up to, and talk to you, give you a brief set of updates on projects that we think will be most interesting to you and members of the Half Moon Bay community. So I'm going to try to multitask here, see if I can do it. MidPenn's mission can be succinctly characterized by the 5 words on the right side of this screen: preserve, protect, restore, educate, and enjoy. This is what we do with MidPenn Open Space. On the coast, our mission is a bit more expansive and includes protection and support for agriculture and preservation of the coastside's rural character. Comprised of over 72,000 acres of acquired and protected open space on the San Francisco Peninsula, Mid-Penn is one of the largest open space districts in the state of California. The district boundary is roughly the bay to the east, Highway 1 to the west, the southern portion of Pacifica to the north, and Los Gatos to the south. The green areas depict the district's open space preserves. This map shows the director wards. Two of us serve from San Mateo County. My ward is Ward 7. Let's see if I can, wait. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, Ward 7, here, this is me. My other colleague from San Mateo County, Margaret McNiven, represents the south portion of the coastside. Both of our wards extend up and over to include areas on the bayside. The other 5 directors are from Santa Clara County. Some quick facts about the district. We celebrated our 50th anniversary in 2022. And in the last 53 years, we've created 27 preserves with over 250 miles of trails. Our preserves are free and open every day of the year from sunrise to sunset. Our 7-member board represents over 760,000 constituents in 3 counties. We currently have 200 employees and over 1,000 volunteers. I want to say that again. We have 1,000 volunteers. And estimate that our preserves receive about almost 3 million visitors a year, at least in 2022, which is the last time we did a count. Rancho San Antonio, our preserve in Los Altos, gets about 45% of our visitorship. We're headquartered in Los Altos, and I'm incredibly pleased to say that we have recently purchased the Al's Dairy property, where we will be opening a coastal field office soon. Good news for those of us that live here and don't always want to drive to Los Altos. Okay, well, no presentation on Mid-Penn would be complete without some glamour shots of our preserves. This one is this is actually Purisima Creek, one of my favorites, and I'm going to show you only my favorites tonight. 24 miles of trails for hiking, biking, and horses in Purisima Creek. It's wheelchair accessible, and it also has accessible restrooms. The centerpiece of this 5,400-acre preserve is Purisima Creek Canyon, with its towering redwoods, rushing creeks, ferns, berries, wildflowers, and at this time of year, an assortment of fungi. I'd love to tell you more about Purisima Creek. We'll touch on it a bit later, but there's lots of great history of the logging industry that started in the 1800s around here in this preserve. The preserve, I will mention one more fact. The preserve was created with a gift of $2 million from the Save the Redwood League. Okay, Cloverdale Ranch at 6,300 acres, just south of Pescadero, is our newest acquisition. Cloverdale is intertwined with the rich agricultural heritage of the San Mateo coast that continues to this day. It has the largest intact coastal prairie habitat in the county, the 3rd largest in the state. The prairie habitat is important for the federally and state endangered San Francisco garter snake. Other sensitive habitats found on Cloverdale Ranch include freshwater marshes, wetlands, perennial and seasonal ponds, riparian woodlands, and coastal scrub. El Corte de Madera, another of my favorites right off of Skyline, has more than 36 miles of multi-use trails, which makes it very popular with bicyclists. Also plenty of hardy hiking and horseback riding opportunities. The preserve is located in the upper headwaters of the San Gregorio Creek watershed, which provides critical habitat for steelhead trout and coho salmon. Let's see. Finally, La Honda Creek Open Space Preserve, one of Mid-Penn's largest and most diverse preserves. La Honda Creek offers immersion into a historic ranch land with grazing cattle. La Honda Creek is one of the several the district's preserves where we engage in conservation grazing, which means that on occasion you may find yourself hiking along with the cows. All right, we'll move now on to project updates, and I'm sorry I'm flying through a lot of this stuff. There's so much to talk to you about, but I'm just going to pick a few things for this evening. Anybody know what snake this is? Anybody? San Francisco garter snake, for sure. Resides exclusively on the San Francisco Peninsula. Midpen and its partners are working to protect and restore the habitat for this and other species. And really one of the largest and most thriving populations of the garter snake is on Cloverdale Ranch. Okay, let's dive into conservation grazing. I mentioned that before. In 2007, the Board of Directors approved a grazing management policy as part of our larger natural resource management policies, the purpose of which is threefold: to enhance and maintain grassland habitat, to manage vegetation fuel for fire protection, and finally, to sustain the local agricultural economy. To date, Midpen has protected more than 19,000 acres of natural and agricultural lands on the coast. 15,500 of these acres are leased to our ranching tenants under our conservation grazing program. Midpen has protected more than a third of the remaining ranch lands on the San Mateo coast. A bit more about our investment in agriculture. In December 2023, the board approved a series of updates to this policy with the following goals. First, to keep prime ag land in production while ensuring protection of sensitive natural resources. To sustain and promote environmental health and encourage environmentally sensitive and sustainable agriculture. And finally, to support and implement practices that enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion on district ag lands and within the larger agricultural community. And I want to drill down into this policy a bit because in this day and age, it's really important. One of our policies states that we will retain current district agricultural housing and expand agricultural housing opportunities when feasible to expand or to further district goals. We will consider opportunities to partner with and support local organizations that support affordable regional agricultural workforce housing when such partnerships further the district's goals. We are committed to establishing strong working relationships with the agricultural workforce community. And finally, we will implement strategies and actions to further the district's diversity, equity, and inclusion goals that align with the mission. This means we are building relationships with community-based organizations that are rooted in and serve the farm worker community. We seek and provide opportunities to lease district agricultural properties to people who have not traditionally owned or operated ranches and farmlands. The Midpen Board of Directors stands strong in support of these policies that directly benefit our critically important farm worker community. A bit more about agriculture. We have made considerable investments in ag infrastructure here. $4 million we've spent since 2009. A variety of things, including brushing, new fencing, road and trail improvements, and water infrastructure, especially when that water infrastructure benefits other critters who share the land with the cattle. All right, moving now to wildfire resiliency. Fire is a critical concern in our area, and we keep seeing reminders of how important it is to steward the land to limit the intensity and spread of fires. Midpen's Wildland Fire Resiliency Program is managed in partnership with CAL FIRE, local fire districts, state and county parks, and other organizations to make sure that we're applying the right approaches at scale across municipal and district boundaries. No silos for us when it comes to our Wildland Fire Resiliency Program. The program includes mapping and monitoring, which is shared with our partners. The primary work you'll see in open space is vegetation management. For example, the creation of shaded fuel breaks and increasingly the use of prescribed fire This picture shows a prescribed burn last October in Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve, which is southeast Los Gatos. Here, these are Mid-Penn staff collaborating with CAL FIRE on the burn. You'll be seeing more of that in the future. Just a bit more about wildland fire resiliency. I could speak all night about this. It's a very important topic to us. But something near to home, the end of last year, we worked with CAL FIRE and the San Mateo County RCD to create an expanded shaded fuel break, set of fuel breaks around the town of La Honda. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Purisima Creek Redwoods and our public access initiative. Purisima Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve is one of Mid-Penn's most beloved. It's the second most visited of our preserves on the coast side. With a large network of trails and a beloved opportunity to explore redwood forest, parking demand often exceeds parking spaces during peak visitation hours, holidays, and weekends. In November of 2022, the district completed a study that assessed what transportation demand strategies could be appropriate for Purisima Creek at a preserve-wide level and made recommendations for implementation strategies. Mid-Penn further evaluated some of the recommended strategies for implementation at this particular preserve, including a shuttle program, real-time parking information, carpool and van pool parking, reservation parking. During the December 2024 board meeting, the board agreed to evaluate these programs under CEQA, which is where we are at now. Based on this study, Mid-Penn is currently advancing 3 projects to significantly expand and improve public access across Purisima Creek. The first is the Purisima to the Sea parking and trail. Wait, did it again. Oh no, how did I get there? Okay. Here, right here is a new parking area at Verde Road, which we will be constructing as part of this trail network. We have a shuttle program that will be moving people from this parking lot to the lower Purisima Creek parking lot, which is always overcrowded. And then we have another program project at the top, the Highway 35 multi-use trail crossing and parking project as well. Construction is estimated to begin in 2028. If you're interested in this project, if anyone in the audience is interested, I encourage you to sign up to stay informed of our project on this initiative. We're always looking for public feedback. You can go to our website and look at Purisima Creek Redwoods Multimodal Access Project and sign up for updates. On this map, you see the larger Bay to the Sea vision that we're working on with a variety of partners. We're very proud to be, very proud to be working with the city of Half Moon Bay on this north segment of the Purisima to the Sea Trail, which will run through Johnston Ranch out through Wavecrest to the Coastal Trail. This is the other portion that I mentioned before with the parking area at Verde Road. But on the east side, you see the larger vision of connecting all the way to the bay. We're hoping to leverage a portion of the Dumbarton Rail Corridor right away to enable bicycle and pedestrian use. Okay, we last presented to you in 2023, so didn't get a chance to update you on our progress on Measure AA in the last 11 years, and to thank you for supporting the future of the district. Measure AA was a $300 million bond that was passed by voters within the district in 2014 to help realize the 30-year vision plan that was created for the district after 18 months of public outreach. To date, we've preserved over 9,600 acres of open space. 4,200 acres have been open to the public at 5 preserves. We've opened more than 30 miles of trails with another 30 in construction or in the planning stages. We've also opened 3 new parking areas, creating a total of 126 new parking spaces. All right, and finally, I just wanted to mention that every month, Mid-Penn offers a wide variety of docent-guided activities and volunteer opportunities. You'll find a complete list of our events on our website. But I just jotted down a couple of things that are happening just in the next couple of days to give you a flavor of what goes on with the district's docents. Tomorrow, we have a winter waterfowl hike at Stevens Creek Shoreline Nature Area. Saturday, fungal fun in Parisima Creek Redwoods. Also on Saturday, Who's That? The Owls of the Redwoods and Bear Creek Redwoods Preserve. And on Sunday, a family nature journaling event in Skyline Ridge. So there's always lots going on. If you're interested in having a fun adventure on a weekend, I highly recommend checking out our docent activities. Lots of great things for kids. Okay, and in closing this evening, on behalf of the Mid-Penn Board of Directors and staff, I offer you, the City Council, and your staff our deep thanks for your partnership. We've accomplished a lot together in recent years, and there's lots more to do. So we look forward to continuing our partnership on behalf of the land, the people, and the critters that call the coastside their home. So with that, I will take questions.
Thank you, Zoe. Anyone have questions for Zoe on the report?
I just want to say thank you for everything, because when I moved here in '89, I didn't even know about Higgins Parisima Canyon until my wife and I had a condo in Belmont and the condo over here, and the Park and Rec guy goes, "You haven't been to the jewel of Half Moon Bay?" And I eventually just fell in love with it, and I've been mountain biking it for years. And then when the pandemic hit, the parking lot issues, which I'm hearing now, we have a resolution, because that jewel has really become a major jewel here in this town. And then a lot of people from out of town come here, so I appreciate everything you guys are doing, especially with the parking.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's been a challenge, and we are working hard to try to address the increasing visitorship. People are discovering that Parisima Creek is a jewel, and I love to spend time in the Redwoods. So we're doing our best, but we look forward to hearing from you and from members of the public to help guide our direction as we move forward with that. So thank you very much. We really appreciate your time this evening.
We are blessed to have you in our midst. We are blessed to live here on the coast side, and the special place it is, Mid-Penn contributed to that in a really big way. So we're grateful. Thanks for
you.
coming down tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Our next presentation is from the Mid-Coast Community Council.
Good evening, council members, and thanks for having me over as always. A quick update for you on what's been happening. On our December 17th meeting, we had officer elections, and Kimberly Williams is the new chairperson, Scott Bollinger is the co-chair, Claire Toutant is the secretary, and Gus Matamal is the new treasurer. We also have 2 vacancies on the council that we'd like to fill. So if there's someone out there listening and they live between Miramar and Montero and they're interested on being on the Mid-Coast Community Council, let us know. I'd also like to say that Matthew Burrows is the new county planning commissioner for District 3, and he lives in Half Moon Bay. Okay, so if you've been driving north from here on 1, you'd notice the new barriers that are in place along Route 1 in the Mid-Coast. That's the start of the Route 1 multi-asset reconstruction roadway rehabilitation project. It's going to include just paving, drainage, guardrails, and some poles for traffic monitoring. So that project has started. So at some of our upcoming meetings, we're going to be discussing the county housing element. So Half Moon Bay has a housing element, Burlingame has a housing element, but the county also has a housing element, and we're part of that in the unincorporated regions of Half Moon Bay, and it's similar to your housing element, and I'm interested in finding out how that is managed in the future. So that's going to be one of our updates at an upcoming meeting. We're going to have The report for Seal Cove, the problems in Seal Cove, is out, and Supervisor Mueller is going to have a meeting regarding this on February 19th. The Telemobile Crisis Response Team, which replaces CARES, is going to give a presentation on the 28th. And so if you're interested in that, please come to our meeting. And that's about it for me. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the status of the affordable housing project in Moss Beach?
I'm going to have to come back next and give you that information because it's changing. I don't know the exact status of it right now, but it's in flux. I don't know whether they're going to proceed or not. It is proceeding? Okay.
It is proceeding? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council members? No. Thank you and good night. Thank you. All right. Sure, I can do that. Is there anybody who would like to comment on either of the presentations this evening? You can fill out a form, but you can come up to the podium and speak now, if you'd like. This is separate. This is just on the presentations.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, city staff. My name is Joaquin Jimenez, and I would like to comment on Midpen, and about the work that they've done. And some of the work that I've been doing for the last decades is related to that, to the work protecting the community, protecting the coast, or farming heritage, the ranching heritage or the coast side. And their mission aligns with what I believe, and also the housing opportunity and supporting different groups to provide housing for farm workers, and supporting our farming community, and supporting the change of policy that they had, giving opportunity to more local ranchers and more local farmers to use the land that they have been protecting. So I want to thank, Zoe and Josh for the work that you do and supporting in Midpen, looking forward to see them continue to protect our community and protecting our farming and our ranching. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to move along then. Let's see, where are we? Mayor's announcements of community activities and community service, item 4. I have nothing to report tonight, but I think probably the next meeting in February, the year will have, gotten into gear and people are going to be doing stuff and we'll have plenty to report. But not tonight. So item 5 is report out from recent closed session meetings, and I'll defer to our City Council, Denise Pisano.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, the council met in closed session on 2 items. There is no reportable action from the meeting. The council also met in closed session on January 8th and January 13th, and just for the public's information, there was no reportable action at those meetings as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. Next, we have city manager updates to council.
There are no updates to council tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're moving on to public forum, which is item 7, and I'll start with Deborah Penrose speaking as a citizen.
Good evening. I am speaking tonight as a citizen, private citizen, and not for City Council. I've been struggling to come up with something to say about the state of our state and the state of our nation, and heard a speech by Gavin Newsom, which I was very impressed with. And although not everybody has the same politics as I do. I think he offers a good message for helping us to save our state. So I'm going to record that. I'm going to play that.
In Washington, the president believes that might makes right. But the courts are simply speed bumps, not stop signs. That democracy is a nuisance to be circumvented. Secret police, businesses being raided, windows smashed, citizens detained, citizens shot. Masked men snatching people in broad daylight, people disappearing, using American cities as training grounds for the United States military. Purposeful chaos emanating from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Shifting the tax burden from the wealthy, from billionaires to small businesses, ranchers, farmers, and the middle class, lining the pockets of the rich. Crony capitalism at unimaginable scale. State capitalism, self-dealing, profit-making, not policy-making. Rolling back rights marginalized communities, rewriting history, censoring historical facts. Their politics, of some twisted nostalgia about restoring the dynamics of a bygone era. None of this is normal. And it's important to remember at moments like this, the greatest tragedy is not, as King said, the clamor of bad people, but it's the appalling silence of so many good. In Washington, the president...
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. The next speaker is Harvey Rarbach.
Good evening. As Governor Newsom just said, and as I'm sure all of you are aware, our immigrant and Latino community is in terrible, I don't know what the word is, but there's a real effort to minimize the contributions and the work that our immigrant community and Latino community have done. So it's very discouraging, but I would like to be a little more optimistic and present 3 ideas that I think the council could implement, which would go a long way towards showing our support for our immigrant and Latino community. Number 1, if Half Moon Bay were to be pass a resolution to become a sanctuary city, that would send a message to the immigrant community that we care about them, that we have their backs, that we know that they're in jeopardy and we need to do whatever we can to protect them. Number 2, if we were to go ahead and implement 555 Kelly affordable housing for senior farm workers, that would be another indication that the city has the back of the people who've made this city much of what it is. Our agricultural heritage is enormous, and we need to respect that. And the affordable housing right over there would be a big step in that direction. Lastly, the rental protections that we're going to be discussing later are another example of what we can do to show our immigrant and Latino community that we care about them and we support them. So I urge you to think about these ideas that can be implemented to make sure that we have the back of the people who made our city as great as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. The next speaker is Joaquin Jimenez.
Thank you, Harvey. Good evening once again, Joaquin Jimenez. I want to paint a picture for you. Usually when we come to city council meetings, we don't talk much about the agriculture and the food that we actually produce here in Half Moon Bay. One of the things Mid-Penn talked about protecting our farmland or ranching land. You have to envision Half Moon Bay, the coast side of San Mateo County. We are the largest farming community in the Bay Area. We don't really talk about that, and we need to protect that. We don't talk about Half Moon Bay or the coast side from Montero to Pescadero. If we were to farm the land that we have available, we can feed the whole peninsula, the whole Bay Area, and more. You have to look into it. The agricultural business in San Mateo County right now is producing about $100 million a year. That's really nothing. We should be producing $500 million a year. And it's possible. We have the land, we have the people. One of the visions that I have about the coast side is in the next 10 years, we're going to be doing that. Our agricultural economy is going to grow because we're going to be giving opportunity to new farmers, to new ranchers. Just think about it. If we were shut down 92 earthquake, something happens, Half Moon Bay, the coast side, we would not go hungry at all. And we don't think about that. Half Moon Bay used to have a dairy farm. The coast side, we had dairy farms. What happened? We're not interested in protecting that. More people are interested in developing Half Moon Bay, building bigger resorts. We don't need that. Go somewhere else. Build a resort somewhere else. Not in Half Moon Bay, not on the coast side. We can produce the food, but we have to believe in that. We have to give opportunity to our community to use the resources that we have, the land. We have it. New businesses are going to happen. We can be a food hub for the whole peninsula. Let's focus on that. Let's teach the people how to fish. Let's not give them fish. Let's teach them how to fish. And we can do it. But we have to be able to discuss that. Do your own research. Reach out to the Farm Bureau. See what they think about farming. See how it's dying. Let's protect that. Last comment, this is separate about, I want to make sure that people understand that not every horse event that happens in Half Moon Bay is organized by me. Okay? There's a lot of other people that organizes parades, trail rides. The only one that I'm responsible for is Vaquero Days, and that's the one that's organized in August. And the other ones, everybody's welcome to organize their own events, and sometimes I participate, sometimes I don't, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm organizing that event as well and throw dirt on my name. So be clear, the only event that I organize is Vaquero Days, and that's in August. So if you see me riding with another group, that's not me organizing, I'm just participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. The next speaker is Joanne Murkowski, followed by Anita Reese.
Good evening, Mayor Ruddock and council members. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. As we start a new year, many of us reflect on the past year and how we might want this year to be different. So one of the things I've been reflecting on and hoping for change is on what seems to be the stalled progress on 555 Kelly. My hope is that 2026 is the year when we finally see this project come into reality. You, as a city council, have a key role in making that happen. And I'm hoping that that's among your resolutions for 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Anita Reese?
Anita Reese. Hello, my name's Anita Reese. I'm with Unhoused on the Coast Outreach, a program of the Pacifica Resource Center, which is primarily funded by the San Mateo County Center on Homelessness. We provide outreach and engagement and case management services to unhoused folks on the San Mateo County coast from Pacifica to Pescadero with the goal of helping them return to housing. Outreach staff is available 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Saturday, Sunday, and holidays from 9 to 5. And we'll respond to outreach requests generally within 3 hours during those times. If you see someone living outside in a vehicle or another place not meant for habitation, please call us at 650-452-6279 or email us at ucoutreach@pacresourcecenter.org. As of today, there are 46 individuals who are unhoused in Half Moon Bay in 5 encampments. Of those 5 encampments, there are 22 folks living in those encampments. We did see a decline in the number of people who are living in encampments in Half Moon Bay, but we saw an increase in the number of folks who are not living in encampments that are on the streets, which was an additional 24 folks. So this is a slight increase from the last time that I was here. It was 39, now it's 46. There is some general fluctuation that happens with folks. They move around. I also wanted to share an update about the folks who were in motorhomes on Main Street a few months back. They are both now sheltered or in housing as of the last 2 weeks. So literally within the last 2 weeks, one went into shelter, the other one went into housing. And I just wanted to share that it took a lot of coordination between city staff, the sheriff, and county resources over the last 6 months to a year to get them to that place. And it still may not work, right? It may be a short-term solution, but we're working on making sure that they stay longer-term, right? So providing additional resources and support during the first 3 to 6 months to make sure that they have the resources that they need. Excuse me. So just to let you know that it's not a simple solution. It does take time to get us to this place. And we provide that resource to folks, anybody who is unhoused, that is willing to work with us. I also just want to share that the biannual one-day homeless count is next Thursday, the 29th. Excuse me. I know that this is one of the sites for Half Moon Bay, and several of our outreach folks will be here to help with that count. So if you want to be a volunteer enumerator with the county, please go to the county's website and just do a search for One Day Homeless Count 2026, and you can still sign up. We are still looking for volunteers, so would love to have you join us. And that information is generally used to help the county determine how they want to offer additional resources to locations, which is one of the ways that Half Moon Bay has gotten some additional resources over the past several years. So again, I just want to thank you for continuing to be partners in our work to help unhoused folks return to housing. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. Your organization provides very valuable services, and we're glad that you come down and connect with us at our city council meetings. And yes, the city is committed to continued partnering with you. So thank you for that. Is there anyone online who would like to comment during public forum? You can raise your hand now.
I see none.
No one on public forum? Okay, we will then move on to item 8, which is the consent calendar. Sorry. I don't think I have to hit my gavel, but maybe next time. The consent calendar is item 8. Would someone like to pull anything this evening?
Just 8M, just those are the old meetings. I will be abstaining.
Oh, okay. So we're
Similar approach to what we've done in the last couple of meetings as we catch up on these old records where the 2 newer council members will not be part of that vote.
So that'll just be 8M then?
Correct.
Okay.
And it doesn't need to be pulled, it's just a separate consent vote.
Right. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the other items and read those off?
Sure. I'm sorry? What's right here, right? I move that we waive the reading of resolutions and ordinances, that we approve the minutes of December 16, 2025 regular meeting, that we approve the minutes of January 8, 2026 special meeting, that we approve the minutes of the January 13th, 2026 special meeting, that we approve minutes of the January 13th, 2026 joint special city council planning commission meeting, that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to dispose of assets acquired to provide services at the Opportunity Center of the Coast Side in accordance with the city's asset disposition policy, that we accept the warrant list for the month of December 2025, that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Zune Engineering in an amount not to exceed $69,084 for pre-construction services for the Highway 1 North project. That we approve professional services agreement with Black & Veatch Corporation for stormwater national pollutant discharge elimination system and annual reporting services for 2026. That we adopt by resolution Phase 2 of the Half Moon Bay Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. That we accept Mayor Ruddock's list of City Council representatives and designated assignments for 2026. That we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the County of San Mateo for the implementation of a Senate Bill 1383 compliant procurement program in an amount not to exceed $25,000 annually.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Just before you go ahead and vote, I just want to make a note that on the January 13th, 2026 special meeting, that we do have the correct minutes written, and we'll make reflection on yours, that Councilmember Nagengast was recused at on the last item. It wasn't written in there, so.
Okay. Council?
Madam Mayor, just confirming there's no public comment on the consent agenda. That's correct?
I will check. Is there anyone who would like to address the consent agenda? Normally, you can address items on the consent agenda during public forum, but I'll allow folks tonight, if you'd like to comment now on any item on the consent agenda, you can come forward. Is there anyone online who would like to comment?
I see none.
No hands raised.
Nope.
Okay. So do we have a second? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 8M, which is approve certain past city council regular and special meeting minutes. And we can entertain a motion and a second now, but council members Nagengast and Johnson will go ahead and recuse. So can I have a motion?
I move that we approve certain past city council special and regular minutes from prior years as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose,
Yes.
and Mayor Ruddick.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay. Thank you. Item 9, we have no ordinances and public hearings this evening, so we're moving on to item 10. And we already agreed to move up item 10B ahead of item 10A, and that is updates on the residential rent stabilization program and residential rental registry program. Thank you.
Sorry. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and community. Irma Acosta, City Manager's Office. Is this better? Okay, perfect. Good evening. Tonight, I am here to provide an update on the city's rent stabilization and rental registration programs. These programs were launched in the summer of 2024, following Council's direction from the November 2023 study session on tenant protections. These programs were adopted through ordinances 2024-02, which created the residential rental registry, and ordinance 2024-04, which established the rent stabilization program. Together, these programs created the city's local framework for tenant protections, rental market oversight, and housing data collection. This update reflects the programs now moving from initial rollout into a more stable operational phase. The rental registry requires all residential rental units in Half Moon Bay to be registered annually through the city's online registry portal. The registry supports housing policy and planning while also monitoring the rental market. As of the end of 2025, there are 1,586 registered units, and that total number exceeds the number of registered units that the city initially estimated to be around 1,300 rental units at the beginning of the program. And I want to clarify that we are not saying that we've identified and registered every rental unit in Half Moon Bay. What the data is showing is that there are more rental units in the community than we initially anticipated before the program launched. So this registry is helping the city develop a more accurate and complete understanding of what the local rental market looks like. As the program has developed, staff has also identified a number of properties that were previously registered but are no longer operating as rentals. So to date, there are 9 properties that have exited the rental registry program due to changes in use. And some of these include conversions to owner-occupied homes, long-term vacancies, and properties that were sold and no longer being rented. The rent stabilization ordinance applies to residential rent properties with 2 or more units built before February 1st, 1995, and this is consistent with Costa-Hawkins. Of the 1,586 registered units, 698 of those units are rent stabilized. So for the year 2025-2026, the maximum allowable rate increase is capped at 1.2%, with no more than 1 increase permitted in a 12-month period. That percentage is based on the lesser of 3% or 80% of the change in CPI, ensuring that the cap remains responsive to inflation. This slide provides an overview of how the rental registry and rent stabilization programs are funded and what the city has invested to date. At program inception, council allocated funding from the Affordable Housing Fund to support the program setup and implementation. These programs are funded through a fee structure. The annual registry fee is $75 per unit. The rent stabilization fee is $286 per unit, and for a rent stabilized fee of $361 per unit. The fees support the administration of the programs, compliance monitoring, enforcement, and tenant education. To date, the city has expended approximately $257,000 on implementation and administration of the rental programs. Of the amount, approximately $220,000 was incurred during the first year of implementation. Those initial costs, including system setup and development, program launch, registration rollout, community outreach, development of enforcement procedures, establishment of the petition and hearing process, and initial staffing and customer service support for tenants and landlords. As with most new programs, these startup costs were front-loaded, so the first year required a significant amount of administrative work to build the program infrastructure, educate the community, and establish all the necessary systems to maintain the programs. So when you compare the total expenditures of $250,000, it reflects an overall cost recovery of approximately 68% to date. This comparison is provided for scale, recognizing that the initial implementation costs were front-loaded during the first year. To date, the core components that support the day-to-day administration of the programs and that contribute to the current expenditures are staff time, Ptolemy, the platform, and Legal Aid Society. So in terms of program administration, is primarily carried out by an administrative analyst with enforcement and compliance activities supported by the community preservation specialist. And legal and policy support from the city's attorney's office and the city manager on a case-by-case basis. But some staff responsibilities include managing the registry, responding to landlord and tenant inquiries, processing registrations, verifying exemptions, reviewing rental increases, and just providing technical assistance for tenants and landlords. I will note that during the initial rollout, staffing support was higher due to the volume of registrations and outreach that the program required. This year, staff costs have stabilized as operations have become more streamlined. So for the current year, staffing costs are approximately $10,000, reflecting a more efficient administrative structure compared to the first year. Ptolemy, they are the registry platform that the city uses to collect the rental housing information, and it's the system used by landlords to register units, submit compliance documentation, and pay annual fees. And this year's expenditures in terms of Ptolemy include the platform licensing, maintenance, and technical support, and just the system administration. And then lastly, legal aid. So the city contracts with legal aid to provide free legal assistance to low-income tenants related to evictions, rent disputes, and tenant rights education. The service makes sure that tenants have access to professional legal guidance and helps prevent housing instability through early intervention. And as outlined in my staff report, we do believe that if current staffing levels and contracting needs and just the workload hold, the programs are projected to be financially sustainable without additional support from the general fund or the Affordable Housing Fund. So early outcomes. Given that the programs are still relatively new, it's a little hard to quantify the direct impact at this time. However, Legal Aid has shared that during the 2025 calendar year, they have opened 15 cases for Half Moon Bay residents. And these cases included tenants seeking help with eviction notices, rent increase questions, and just understanding the rights for both state and local law. It has also improved rental market visibility. So for the first time, the city now has a comprehensive verified database of its rental housing stock through the rental registry. And it also provides an ongoing data collection system that allows the city to monitor rent increases, vacancy trends, turnover, and compliance patterns. So we believe that over time, this data will support more informed policy decisions, better forecasting, and stronger long-term housing planning. This brings me to the policy options for council to consider this evening. So one potential policy option for council's consideration is the repeal of both programs. Under this option, the city would discontinue all local residential rent regulation and rental unit registration requirements. This would eliminate the ongoing administrative obligations for landlords, including annual unit registration, fees payments, rent increase reporting, and compliance monitoring. From an administrative standpoint, the repeal would also eliminate the need for continuing program staffing. However, it is important to note that the repeal would still require a period of program wind down, including responding to landlord and tenant inquiries, and then managing data retention and transition activities. With the repeal of both ordinances, landlords would no longer be subject to the city's local rent stabilization requirements, and tenants would no longer receive the corresponding local protection. However, the city's tenant protection ordinance would remain in effect and continue to provide just cause eviction protections for tenants. And in addition, state law protections under the Tenant Protection Act of 2019, also referred to as AB 1482, would continue to apply for qualifying units, including caps on rent increases and just cause eviction protections. Under option 2, so the retention of the rental registry and the repeal of rent stabilization. Under this option, the city would discontinue local rent regulation while retaining the rental registry as a housing data and policy tool. So the registry would continue to provide the city with up-to-date information on the local rental housing stock. The annual unit registration and payment of the registration fee would remain a requirement, and tenants would continue to receive baseline protections under state law AB 1482, as well as local just cause evictions under the city's tenant protection ordinance. And lastly, option 3 would be the retention of both programs. So under this option, the city would continue to operate both programs, and this would preserve the city's full local rental housing framework, including rate increase limitations, tenant protections, the petition process, and the rental housing data system. So the city would continue to monitor local rental housing conditions, administrating compliance and enforcement activities, and providing education and legal assistance resources to tenants. and landlords. And that is it for me. I'm happy to open it for questions or clarifying questions.
So I just want to remind everybody that this item is to receive an update, which we just had from staff, and provide guidance, okay? I'm going to open it up to clarifying questions from council members first, and then we have 9 speakers have filled out forms. There's probably other people online, 10, who would also like to speak, but I'm going to ask you to ask clarifying questions now. You'll probably think of other things that you can ask later, but we're going to start with a list of questions. Okay, all right. Please start.
Thank you. Is there anything in the rent stabilization ordinance about subleasing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, the ordinance applies to sublease as well as primary direct leases. So we've structured all of our rental protections to prevent, people sidestepping it through subleases. So all the protections apply. Correct me if I'm missing something here, but
I think is that our tenant protection ordinance?
correct.
Yeah.
But it would apply to rent stabilization as well. Yeah.
So how would you know if a sublease, the tenant again would have to say something?
Yeah, in most cases, tenant education is really important with these programs because unless they say something and if the landlord's not reporting things, we wouldn't have a way to verify it. Although the annual process, as long as people are being honest during that process, we're going to identify these things.
Okay. And one other question. The report mentioned the rent registry aids or supports the housing element updates for the RENA, the housing element that we have to do, the various cycles. If we didn't have rent stabilization, how would we still get those numbers?
I think that would fall maybe under option 2 if we do decide to keep the rent registry, because it would allow us to continue to collect data in terms of like the rental housing market.
Do you know how planning got that information before the registry? Or
I don't, if I can jump in, the rent registry provides really important information. I don't believe it's crucial or necessary for the housing element or meeting RENA, but it certainly is providing us better information than we've had in the past.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else right now? Mr. Brownstone.
And this ordinance doesn't apply to single-family homes or ADUs or mobile homes, right?
The rent stabilization doesn't, but the registry does require those to register. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, I don't have a question at the moment. So we have 15 persons who have submitted speaking slips, and there may be more who want to speak online. But since there's 15, I'm going to restrict time to 2 minutes per person. And I'm going to begin with Cindy Carrasco.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, my name is Cindy Crosco, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. I'm actually here speaking on behalf of my 87 years young father, who owns a 1970s duplex that he has rented downtown for nearly 40 years. It consists of a single-family home and a detached studio, a duplex, which is why, even though it's single-family, it does fall under this program umbrella. His current tenants are senior citizens and have been in the units for over 10 years. His neighbors also have tenants who have resided for 10 or more years. They are not greedy landlords. They don't raise the rents every year, and when they have, it has been nowhere near 10%. They are mom and pop housing providers who take pride in their home. They offer below market rents to maintain good tenants who help care for their property. As you know, it's very expensive to own a property. There's increases every year in property taxes, garbage rates, repairs, and as of this year, a $200 parcel tax. Last year, my father paid $772 for the residential rent stabilization program. For one house and one studio apartment, $772. His allowable rent increase for that same year was 1.2%. For his studio apartment, that equated to $11. It's no wonder why small housing providers are selling their homes. My children and his grandchildren both rent, as do several of his other grandchildren. We understand very, very well this absolute crisis that is persistent across the country, really. However, as well-intended as it may have been, the rent stabilization program is not the solution. It does not provide a single new unit of affordable housing in Half Moon Bay. It discourages homeowners from spending money to maintain their property, and it doesn't bring in additional property tax revenue. It's also redundant with California AB 1482. With time running short, I will jump to the end, which is strongly ask that you please proceed with option 1 to discontinue the program in its entirety and focus your efforts on items which will bring new affordable homes and housing to Half Moon Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, please keep your remarks to 2 minutes or less. Thank you. The next, and no applause, okay? We're going to be respectful of everybody who speaks this evening. The next speaker is Brian Jacobs, followed by Nancy Stern.
Good evening. I'm Brian Jacobs. Thank you for having me. I'll keep it brief. The first speaker, I think, did a good job. I also am encouraging option 1. I'm a real estate broker, and I'm helping a client with a property who owns a 3-unit building built in the early 1900s near downtown. For $2,500 a month rent, she can raise it $30. I don't know if any of you have any bills, but when's the last time in the last year your bill only went up $30 for gas, water, garbage, any maintenance? It discourages maintenance, and so she decided, I need to sell the property. I can't keep up with this. In trying to sell the property, I've had 5 buyers come to the property and look at the rent stabilization and say, well, this is not feasible. This is a early 1900s built home. How am I going to maintain this home? So I think that this is an impressive amount of money that they can increase for someone who wants to maintain the home, and everything the previous speaker said actually sums it up really well. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next speaker is Nancy Stern. Please withhold applause. I'll remind you again. Nancy Stern, followed by Harvey Rarbach.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention. And a request for the future, if the city could use the rental registry to let housing providers such as myself know that this is going to be a topic. I just heard about this last minute, so I'm glad I'm here to address you. I'm all for affordable housing, and it's no surprise to me that this no-go decision has come back to the council. From its inception, the ordinance lacks clarity on overall objective of the ordinance, including what potential policy, which was referenced earlier. I'm still not clear on the policy that we're trying to address here. Decisions were being considered, and it lacks an overall sense of purpose as far as, so what, we collected this data, what are we going to do with it? Nice information, but a lot of this information is available on the web. It lacks public outreach prior to implementation and limited communication. It lacks the education component so renters can learn more about their rights as noted in Chapter 7 of the Half Moon Bay Municipal Code. I've seen nothing to that. It lacks transparency regarding output of public consumption of data collected and corresponding outcomes and actions being considered as a result of the data collection. All I see here is information, but nothing, no actions from it. And it lacks consideration of our Half Moon Bay demographics. From the get-go, this appears to have been a cookie-cutter, big brother, big metro city approach for a small coastal town. So on the upside, there's an opportunity to learn from the insights gained from this experiment with regard to how and why decisions such as this are made. Thanks for reconsidering, and I support discontinuing both programs.
Thank you, Nancy. Next speaker is Harvey Rarbach, followed by Robert Pedro.
When I look at the staff report, I am impressed with the success of this program. Contrary to what a lot of speakers have talked about, the people who really benefit from this are not here, mostly because they're scared of showing up in public. I've heard 2 objections to this rent stabilization program. One was that it would drive all the landlords out of business and our housing stock would decrease exponentially. As you just heard, there are 9 units that have been removed out of over 1,500. So the housing stock is still there. This is just fear-mongering. The other objection was we already have state laws that protect tenants and have a rent cap. If you look at what actually happened prior to the rent stabilization ordinance, nobody was benefited. Nobody would go forward with the complex procedures that were needed to get the tenant protections. So, excuse me. So the fact that we have local legal society intervention really helps the tenants in this community. And I urge you to keep both programs. They're doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
The next speaker is Robert Pedro, followed by Frank Bento.
Good evening, Robert Pedro. I provide tenant placement services for tenants and then also property management services for housing providers. I want to start by thanking you for your dedication, service, and leadership to the residents of Half Moon Bay. It takes a lot of effort and time, so I really appreciate what you do. I respectfully request that you support option 1 and repeal the 2 policies that actually cause more damage to the people they're supposed to protect. So please consider that. And then also, if we're looking for other solutions, there has been some nice reports and data out that about 70% of evictions are due to non-payment. Redwood City and now currently San Mateo have adopted a rental assistance program for tenants. So you have a situation where your tenant loses their job. It takes them 2 or 3 weeks to find another job. It may take 4 to 6 weeks to get that next paycheck. So they're going to fall behind maybe a month or 2. This rental assistance program helps tenants in that situation. So I would highly recommend looking to that type of a program as a possible solution. Thank you for your time. I would urge you to support option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Frank Vento, followed by, looks like Sarah Brown? Bueno, thank you.
Frank Vento, thank you, City Council and Mayor, for listening to the speakers tonight. I'm representing a couple of landlords that live out of the area. I informed them today and they couldn't make it to this, so they asked me to speak on their behalf. A 1.23% cap on rents, $3,500 a month, that's $43 increase. Most of Half Moon Bay is now in a high fire zone, and people are seeing rent insurance increases that are way past $43. And again, maintenance costs on property, labor rates aren't going down, material costs aren't going down, and there's no other businesses in the city of Half Moon Bay that have restrictions on how much they earn. And AB 1482 is a reasonable amount as a restriction, but to ratchet it down this tight, you're just, it's just, there's no reason for it. And I understand it's an expensive place to live. I get that. But to penalize property owners who are actually providing the housing to tenants is not a great approach. More housing is the solution. Supply and demand. More housing, it can become more affordable. Yet the city councils of the past have restricted growth in Half Moon Bay. Hence, we don't have the housing to provide for people to live. Thank you.
Sarah Bueno, followed by Mina Springer.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for all the efforts that go into collecting all this data. I've spoken on this in the past and stand here tonight again to firmly oppose the continuation of the rental registration ordinance. I echo the other speakers' efforts in supporting option 1. The state already has rent control protections in place which offer assistance and protections to tenants. I am in support of option 1 to repeal the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Mina Springer, followed by Joanne Rakowski.
Hi, it's Mona Springer, and I'm here to support the option 1 removal of the current rent stabilization ordinance. I own a 3-unit building near downtown Half Moon Bay. It's an older building built long before 1995. I'm limited to an increase in rent to 1.23%, as most of the other speakers have said, that a few dollars does not pay the bills. It doesn't take care of the rise of insurance. It doesn't take care of the property tax situation. It doesn't allow me to do the maintenance that needs to be done on my rentals. And, you know, we just had this big storm. There's a fence laying in the side yard that I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay for. There's no room to improve the housing that I have, and so I'm selling my property. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to leave a legacy situation for my nieces and nephews, and that's just not a possibility anymore. It feels like a violation of my private property rights. The state already has that rent stabilization ordinance, and I don't understand why the cost of informing renters of their rights should be on the backs of homeowners. The information is there and it's available. I question where the numbers came from, the $75 per unit and the $280 whatever dollars. Who did the math? Because it's clearly obvious that just in the rise of property taxes every year, how does that work? And that we're also talking about 15 renters that have had issues that the state ordinance could be taking care of out of, 1,700 homeowners that are renting. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The support is there for renters. It's easy to print out information and have it at City Hall or to be mailed out. You know, I don't have any problem informing my renters.
Please wrap up.
I do have a problem with the way that this is all being done. So, yes, let's do option 1.
Thank you, Mona. The next speaker is Joanne Rakowski, followed by Linda Cross Anderson.
Hi again, and thank you for the opportunity to make another comment. So tonight you've got 3 alternatives presented to you, and I'm speaking in favor of continuation of both the rental registry and the rental stabilization. One of the concerns raised loudly last year when there was discussion was the potential loss of rental properties. So tonight's report is that there are 1,586 units currently registered, and that is nearly 300 more than were anticipated at the launch of the program. And of these 1,586 units, 9 have been eliminated from the market. That's less than 1%. Speakers emphasize the cost to them in terms of ongoing maintenance or special projects that are necessary. And I do note that there are provisions for relaxation of some of the requirements when there are special considerations. But despite that, or aside from that, the fact that there is a very small increase allowable per year is discussed in terms of the income, but the part that's not discussed is the income that they are getting from the rental units themselves. For example, if the rent is $2,500 a month, that's $30,000. And if it's $3,500 a month, then that's $42,000 annually. So I would think if you could get $42,000 per unit, you could probably get some improvements accomplished. We don't have data, much data, and I know it takes time to get it, but legal aid prevented 8 of 15 threatened evictions. Kudos to them. And I think that the benefit to those residents cannot be overstated. Thank you again. I'm in support.
Thank you, Joanne. Next speaker is Linda Cross Anderson, followed by Judy Taylor.
Hi, I'm Linda Cross Anderson. I am SAMCAR President, San Mateo County Association of Realtors President for 2026, but today I speak as a resident of Half Moon Bay. And, you know, we have an adorable little town here, and people are really proud to live here. So don't destroy the legacies that people have tried to build for their families and create a city of totally deferred maintenance. I hear a lot about the financial issue. We've heard a lot about that. I think you can do the math. You realize that it sounds like a lot of money when somebody's getting X amount per unit, but it's really not. When you look at units and how much it costs for a roof or a fence or, you know, anything like that, even just water. So I am respectfully requesting that you repeal these two programs and vote yes on option 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. The next speaker is Judy Taylor, followed by Fernando Pena.
Good evening. I haven't been here in a while. Okay, so a couple of comments to make here. First off, my primary party affiliation is a pragmatist. If something works, you do more of it, and if it doesn't work, you stop. And study after study after study has shown that tenant protections do not work over time. They benefit the person that comes in at the beginning, and then everybody else suffers over time. And please look at those studies. It's ironic for me to sit here and listen to the city council, and this is not casting aspersions, but 3 of you were on the council in 23 and in 24. And in 23, you raised the sewer service charges 12.5%, and in 24, they were raised 13%. And in 24, at the same time, you passed these provisions that said, property owners, if you are renting your properties out, you can't pass that entire expense on to your tenants. And I'm a tenant, and it's not fun to get rental increases, but it's less fun to have the property sell to somebody else because the property owner can no longer manage it. And that is the reality that we're dealing with. And please don't be naive in thinking that this doesn't have an impact down the road, because it very definitely does. My question about the legal aid cases, did either of the ordinances that we're discussing tonight, did either of the ordinances change the outcome of those cases? Did they prevent cases from moving forward? Did they resolve the cases differently than they would have been if these ordinances have not been in place? Because I'm not hearing that that has happened. And I would like to know if these ordinances have really made a difference in those cases. And the last comment, please go to Alas, go to Coastside Hope, go to Abundant Grace, put those people together who are working with the tenants and have them come up with a tenant protection program that can actually work. Have them work with your staff to make that happen, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. The next speaker is Fernando Pena, followed by Barbara LeVay.
Good evening, Mayor Ruddock and members of the City Council. My name is Fernando Pena. I'm here on behalf of the San Mateo County Association of Realtors, on behalf of small mom and pop housing providers. I want to thank the council and the staff for bringing this review before us. I am here in opposition to the rent stabilization and rental registry programs and respectfully request that you vote yes on option 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Barbara LeVay, followed by Jan Gray.
Good evening. Thank you for all your work that you're doing. It's incredible and it's well formatted. It was easy to understand. I appreciate it. But I am echoing the others in encouraging you to go for option 1. We do have state protections for tenants. It often is said when people come to me and talk about, oh, can I buy this house to rent it out? And are there any tenant protections? Yes, there are. And they're like, never mind. I don't want a piece of it. They don't want to get involved in being governed with their own private property. Again, it's private property rights. And I do like the concept that the city of San Mateo adopted was by taking that money and putting it towards tenant protection and helping those who were getting evicted on account of not being able to pay their rent. So the money could be redirected towards those people that you're really trying to help. So thank you. I appreciate all your work.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jan Gray, followed by Pamela Dorr.
Good evening. My name is Jan Gray. I am a citizen of Half Moon Bay. Very proud to be one. I've been around in real estate for over 5 decades. I have a lot of knowledge packed in this brain. I have seen social engineering come, and I've seen a social engineering go. It rarely works. You've given it a good try. A lot of faithfully strong people have put their effort into this, and it shows. But in the long run, because of the increased cost of housing, insurance, repairs, I mean, when you're now in a fire zone, that means you need to get a new roof and all that sort of thing. These people are not BSing you when they are telling you that in the future, the housing market will suffer because of deferred maintenance. There is no other way to go. You have to pay your mortgage, have to pay your taxes and insurance. You have to pay for maintenance and gardening, garbage. The only other thing left is if you can't increase the rent, you can't put on that roof. So I strongly implore you to vote yes on option number 1.
Thank you, Jan. Next speaker is Pamela Dorr, followed by Nancy Fontana.
Hey, I'm Pam Dorr, and I've been in affordable housing for about 20 years. As of last month, I've retired. And I would really encourage you to consider voting for policy option 1. And the main reason for that is that we really need to put our energy into the 3 Ps: production of new units, protection for tenants, and then the most important one, preservation of homeowners that already exist in this community that won't be able to stay unless they get some supports. And one way to do that is if you're asking them to take the burden of providing affordable housing and offer lower rents, you give them something in return. You don't ask them to pay more to do that. You give them something that's going to allow them to stay in your community and offer this service, like a tax exemption. All of those are really crucial programs, and rental subsidy for tenants is essential. I think I heard somebody say something that really stuck with me, which was, a landlord is getting really high rents, but nobody really talked about the mortgage cost, the high mortgage cost. My mortgage is $5,600 a month, And that sounds ridiculous, but the truth is I made a mistake and bought when it was high, and I was happy to buy in a town where I grew up. And I'm fortunate to own, but I won't be able to stay unless we make some changes, and we've got to really think about that. In the last meeting I came to about rent stabilization, I heard a council member say, if you can't afford to be here, get out. And I just don't think that's the right attitude. We're all a community. We all offer a way to support each other. And, you know, I met a high school student when I first bought my house. He came over to help me do some construction, and now he's a contractor in town. He called the other day. He's like, I don't have a place to live. Can you help me? And he turned to me because he knows that I treat my tenants right. I reduce their rent every year that they stay, and I'm a good landlord, and I want to stay in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. The next speaker, final speaker on a slip is Nancy Fontana, and then we will go online.
Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. I'm here to support option 1. The document I just gave you does mention some of the other sections, some of the other sections of the entire chapter housing. So I'm going to read this for you. I'm here this evening to support the repeal of the city's body of law that includes rent stabilization, rent registration, tenant protection, and residential lease term ordinances under Chapter 6 entitled Housing of the Municipal Code. Here, I'm going to be calling it program. The program creates a cumbersome process that requires an exorbitant amount of staff time for a city this small as Half Moon Bay. The program relies on excessive fees and penalties to support its cost. One ordinance states that the city is not precluding itself from exercising its power to add business licensing fees to residential units, should it be deemed necessary. The program is imbalanced in that it projects the position that one party is a victim and the one party is a villain. By having an entire chapter 6.08 tenant protections devoted to tenants when there is no chapter providing landlord protections. The fee for a petition by a tenant is $50. The fee for a petition by a landlord is over $5,000, thereby encouraging tenants to exercise their right to petition while discouraging landlords from exercising their right to petition. By projecting the position that landlords are the cause of the current rental housing crisis and should therefore fix it. By criminalizing the landlord for code violation initially caused by a tenant, the tenant may be evicted but not charged criminally. The program provides no positive incentives for landlords to rent their units at below market rates. There are many creative things that the city could do to incentivize landlords. I see none of that, and I looked through these codes. The program appears vindictive in nature. Should the City Council choose not to repeal the ordinances, I request that the Council consider putting the entire program on hold, except perhaps the registration to provide data for extensive study. That major amendments with a different approach be considered. This said, I hold the concern that even this will be too much for a city of this size. I believe anything less than repeal or major amendments with a different approach will be a disaster to the future of Half Moon Bay's rental market by reducing the number of rental properties, by landlords opting out of the rental market, potential landlords selling previously owner-occupied homes that they may have otherwise turned into a rental, by discouraging the purchase or establishment of housing for rental units by potential landlords, all of which will exacerbate the rental housing crisis and ultimately have a negative impact on tenants. And thank you for your consideration. I just want to point out to you that all the tabs, I could comment on everything in these tabs. I have your fee schedule. You really should look at the fee schedule and see what you passed in, what was it, July? the city has contributed greatly to the cost of housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I don't see many folks online, but if you are online watching and you'd like to address this item, please raise your hand now, and you'll be allowed to speak for 2 minutes.
We do have one, Madam Mayor Evelyn D'Souza.
Okay.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to ask, sorry, there's an echo, I'm so sorry, to report the rental rate as well as the rent stabilization, and so in favor of option 1. I'd like to see affordable housing and your rental program that sort of fits in with the the housing element program. I heard one of the speakers before speak to 3Ps, that was Pamela Dorr, and I very much support that, focusing on protection, expanding rent subsidies and direct assistance for residents who are truly at risk of displacement, and to enable the accelerated production of affordable rental and home ownership opportunities. And then finally, preservation to support the existing landlords to keep units on the market, including targeted property tax exemption or relief, so that we don't lose affordable housing. Thank you for your time and considering a reset that delivers real outcomes for the community.
Thank you, Evelyn. Is there anyone else online who would like to comment on the rental registry program and the rental stabilization ordinance? You will have 2 minutes if you raise your hand. I see no one raising their hand, so I'm going to bring it back to the council. And I'm going to have us take a 10-minute break to use restrooms and do whatever else you want to do, but we'll come back at about 5 of 9 and we'll continue this discussion. Thank you. Everyone, please take your seats. We're going to resume the meeting. Do we have PCTV ready to go? All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to make a request to staff. Irma, could you put up the slide that had the 3 options? There we go. Can the public see those as well? Okay, good. So I thought we would go around the dais first and let everybody ask any additional questions or comments. And then I thought we might take the options, one by one. I guess hearing from your comments, we might get a feel for that, but let's go around once and proceed. And I'm going to start at this end with Councilmember Johnson.
So the only question I had was, the only question that sorry, no, it's louder, thank you. I just made a note, it was the housing element, we talked about this and this kept going around and around, for options to have that data. Does that support the housing element? Does it, or we had other ways to do it? And then the manager, Matthew, brought something forward. Can you repeat that, what you said, Matthew, please?
I think the question was, is the rental registry program necessary for us to inform the housing element? My response is, it is not. I think we have better information because of this. But this is new information that we didn't even have when we were developing the housing element. So it could inform the housing element in the future and it'd be helpful, but it is not necessary.
All right, thank you.
We're going around for comments as well. Yeah.
have some comments. The first thing I note tonight is that there's not a tenant in the house, or there may be a tenant, but there aren't very many tenants in the house who isn't a realtor. The reason we don't have tenants in the house is that they're scared out of their wits. They're going to be arrested, they're going to be shot, they're going to be put on a boat to Venezuela or some other country. So they're in a state of fear, so they haven't spoken up. So we've heard one side of the story. I have great sympathy for that side of the story. I'm a homeowner, and I'm in the high fire hazard region. My property taxes went up $2,000 last year. I just paid $16,000 to have my house painted. It's incredibly expensive to own property here. It's not cheap. And a lot of people who own property here do it because they want to be able to rent out to help support the cost of the housing. And I get that. That makes total sense to me. I don't have a problem with it. I also don't have a problem with businesses making a profit. But I want to make one point. Whether it's a mom and pop or it's a multifamily landlord, multi-unit landlord, you're in business, and you're in business to make money. Now, you may have other motives. You may want to be in business because you want your children to be able to inherit your house and have some place to live. And so the only way you can do that is by renting out some units. There are all sorts of stories like that I've heard that are totally believable. But it's still a business, and it's a profit-making business, or you wouldn't be in it. The other point I want to make is that one of the speakers at Public Forum made. If somebody charges $2,000 a unit per month, they get $24,000 of income. In order to be a landlord, it's going to cost you $361 in this city to register in our registry program. $361 out of $24,000, and that's with a rent of $2,000, which is, I believe, lower than the average rent that people are paying in this area. It's a pittance. I know there are expenses. This is not one of those expenses. This is a small amount. Another point I'd like to make is, somebody said, well, don't have these rent stabilization and rental registry build affordable housing. Oh my God. I mean, that makes me want to scream. We have tried so hard to build affordable housing. And whenever we do, we get people saying, oh, no, not in my backyard. I don't want a 5-story building. I don't care if it's for retired farm workers. We can't afford to build it. And our nonprofits can't afford to build it. When we put out the RFP for 555 Kelly, we got one nonprofit coming to the front. None of the others would touch it. So what's the option then? No affordable housing? Well, that's where we're living right now. We're still trying to get some in this town, but it's going to take maybe 4 years before we get 50 units, if we're lucky. What we didn't hear from are the folks who are living whole families, 4, 5 people in one room and sharing a kitchen and sharing a bathroom with 4 or 5 other families. That's not the typical mom and pop landlord that's here talking about what's going on, but it's what actually exists in this city. And those are the people that we're fighting for. We're talking about, what was the figure that I had? We're talking about protecting probably 3,000 tenants when you talk about 15,800 or 681 units, whatever it is that we have in the city. That means we've got, living in those units, we've got a population of at least 3,000. Maybe it's more, maybe it's a little less, but that's an approximate amount. And what did it cost the city to do that? Less than $40,000 a year for 2 years. That's what it's cost us. So don't talk about what the city is spending on this program. That's crazy. A few years ago, we decided as a council that our city had not paid any attention to the working community here in town. And I specifically am talking about the majority of the workers, the Hispanic community, who comprise 30% of our population. So we decided to do something about it. And one of the things we did about it was start this program of rental registry and rent stabilization to help 1/3 of our population. Now, that doesn't help the mom and pop landlord, but it helps 1/3 of our population. If you talk about the state laws, how much help have they been? They've been no help. We didn't have any tenants going before the state board and saying, gee whiz, state law, whatever it is not protecting me. I think that one of the things I wanted to do this year was I want to concentrate on trying to find a way to help the folks that are not at the poverty level, but that are saying they can't afford to live in town here. And I think we need programs to help them. They need it desperately. They want to live here. Their parents lived here all their lives. They'd like their children to live here. Their kids can't afford it. And I think that's something we need to address as a council. But it has nothing to do with this program. And this program takes nothing away from them. It's difficult for everybody. Anyway, I'll stop there for right now. Thank you.
Councilmember Nagenkast.
Thank you, Mayor. Community, listening to what was spoken to tonight, some emails that were sent to me, talking to land owners who rent property in my district, also renters themselves, I think subleasing is a bigger problem that I don't know how you address that, but I think that's something that does go on, and that has, again, I don't know how you exactly catch that, but I think the subleasing is more of an issue. I've always felt this type of program, the current registry and stabilization, was too much for our size town. If we wanted to have a rent stabilization, have something that to me would be more manageable, and I don't know what that is yet. Some folks have told me there's some communities out there that have something that works, but it's not as intensive, takes the time or what the program that was adopted here in, currently in Half Moon Bay. I liked also, I heard about rental assistance. I think that's something, if there's something we could do, if somebody does lose their job and they can't pay, they're being evicted because they can't pay their rent. I don't know if we can do, you know, same type of program was mentioned in Redwood City and San Mateo, because those are obviously much larger cities than we are, but maybe we can come up with our own, you know, program here in Half Moon Bay. So I'm not, I want us to reboot. So I'd rather have something that would be more manageable here. So I'm not I'm looking to do option one is where I'm looking at. Thank you.
Councilmember Brownstone.
I agree with a lot of what Councilmember Penrose has said, because I'm not seeing what the options are here. In terms of 1482, which was passed in 2019, which means it was been in effect for 6 years, I need more data. I mean, how many people from Half Moon Bay have utilized that? What does it cost to utilize that? Does legal services kick in on that? I have zero data, because almost every person, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but at least half the folks who spoke for option one said, hey, we have 1482, so we don't need any of this. I have no idea what the effectiveness of 1482 is in reality. It's kind of like a baseline. And actually, it provides a 5% minimum increase each year. So up to 10%. Now, you know, 5% of $2,000 a month is $100. That might not seem like a lot to many of the people in this room, but to a lot of other folks who this program addresses are people where $100 a month could mean the difference between paying rent or putting enough food on the table for a family. And if it's a 10% increase, that's $200 a month. So a lot of you might not think that's a lot of money. But for many it is, who these ordinances are designed to protect. And that's always the question, you know, as a community, do we want to be able to protect all our neighbors and workers in the community? And at what cost is it to others? And where's the balance? This idea of rental assistance that I heard, well, that's interesting, because the example I keep saying was, well, for example, if you lose your job, well, what if your landlord's raising the rent 10 or 15% a year? Is that a reason to get rental assistance also? Because without these ordinances, that's what can happen each year. There would be no control. So these are the questions I don't have all the answers to, but, and how much does a rental assistance program cost? How much do we have in our housing budget now? $1 million? About $1 million? Okay. So I don't know. Would this council be willing to first put in a rental assistance program with that $1 million and see how many people we can help with that before we get rid of this program? Would that make a difference? What I do know is without some kind of rental control, will simply increase, we will, for many, be increasing overcrowding, maybe more evictions because people can't pay their rent, more homelessness. With these programs, I think evictions are being reduced and there's less homelessness and less overcrowding. So these are the things that I think we need to balance as a community. And, you know, I hear a lot of examples that support individual arguments that I've heard this evening. But we really have not heard from tenants. And this is exactly what happened the last time we discussed this. We had landlords speaking, realtors speaking, but no tenants. We didn't hear the voices of the tenants speaking. I'm sorry. There were some people here who are tenants, but not the kind of tenants who are being very adversely affected by it. So,
Point of order, please. Hold your emotional expressions back and, you know, no breaking into the conversation, please. Let's be respectful of you all and of us as well. Thank you.
yes, I do realize there are a few folks here who are tenants. But I really wasn't, I don't think I was hearing from folks who are very low income here. And that's what a lot of these programs were addressing. So people who maybe earn $30,000 a year max, people who are near poverty level. So how do we help those folks out? And I haven't really heard any answers to that other than, well, if you can't afford the rent, then, you know, you shouldn't live here. So if that's the kind of community we want to be, okie doke. But that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Is there a middle ground to help people out without landlords feeling put upon? But when I look at some of those examples that we quoted here, you know, you have 3 units, $2,000 a unit, you know, that's a fair amount of income for 3 units. And it is a business. You know, being a landlord is a business. I've been a landlord. And, yeah, it can be, if you can't afford it, then maybe you shouldn't be a landlord. But it's a business. And if people are buying a building for the first time and there's a really high mortgage, that's a decision. Other people have owned a building for years and their mortgage is paid off and there's a different kind of income flow. So until I think I have more answers to some of these questions and what some of the alternatives could be around fees, et cetera, I would rather either keep in place what we have till we have more answers, till we understand if 1482 really is a solution or not, and whether or not we want to have rental assistance using a lot of our housing fund instead of other purposes. And also to the other point that was made about, hey, the solution is we should build more housing. Well, this is not a city that has typically been in favor of growing our housing. If anything, it's the other direction, right? Very, very, very slow growth. And it's taken years just to even see if we could get 555 Kelly, 40 units, which is at very little cost to the city because a nonprofit would be paying for it all. But even that has a ton of opposition. So I guess I'm a little confused as, you know, to where, how we can provide more housing if no one wants to build it.
So are there renters who need help here in Half Moon Bay? No question about it. Are rents too high? Absolutely. Are the current programs at an appropriate scale for a city of, you know, approximately 12,000 people? I don't think so. I don't think it's the right fit in terms of scale for our community. And I have voted against both portions of the program, on a couple of different occasions. And I think there are things that we can do instead. Like, I like the idea of the rental assistance. In fact, right now, for the last few years, we've given grants to Coastside Hope, a portion of which have been used for rental assistance. Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
I think you're probably referring to our CSFA program.
Yes.
That funding I don't believe is used for rental assistance, but separately, during the pandemic, we gave funding to both Coastside Hope and St. Vincent de Paul for rental assistance. It came out of our Affordable Housing Fund. That's correct.
I think I recall that the applications were to cover a portion of rental assistance. I don't know if it was the entire program, but so we've already done some of that, and I think we should look at that again. And one of the problems we have here, well, nationally and in California, is that the CPI does not cover landlords' homeowners insurance. They calculate it for renters. They don't calculate it or include it for landlords. And those costs have been going up. We've got new fire maps that are going to require people to do retrofitting of their properties. That's going to be, quite a bit of money. That will all happen at a minimum under the state cap, which is, the between 5 and 10%. And, I think we need to account for that, for those rising costs. I don't know that we can incentivize landlords to reduce their rents. I know I've spoken to a lot of landlords in this town who have said, believe me, I do not willy-nilly raise my rents. I like my tenants. I help out families. I'm not gouging you. And I believe them because we're a small town. I know them. They know me. These are, small landlords, mom and pop landlords. If we drive them out, we're going to end up with private equity, in New York or Los Angeles or wherever, buying up these units and lobbying the state to be allowed to have waivers for 1 or more years, if not throw it out altogether. And that has an impact on the character of our community. I think we want to do everything we can to keep private equity out of Half Moon Bay and the coastside from owning rental units or buying up single-family homes and turning them into rental units. It's hard to be a landlord. People want to be landlords. We don't want to stop them from wanting to be landlords. It's a source of housing. So I'd like to find a way to help the renters. I don't want to gouge tenants. We have a tenant protection program that I'd like us to keep. We give money to the Legal Aid Society of County of San Mateo. I think that's a really good investment. Maybe we have a tip line where people can contact us first and we can put them in touch with the Legal Aid Society. But I think there are pieces in place that we could perhaps enhance our, contribution to them. But I think those sorts of things will help, and it's more in scale of our community. We have one person, managing our rent control program. That just doesn't make sense to me. We have a community preservation specialist who has to enforce on a number of different programs, not just rent control. It's regular nuisances, it's Airbnbs, it's all kinds of stuff. We just don't have the wherewithal. And, rent control sounds good. They do it in a lot of big cities. I know council members have come from some of those big cities, so I understand where they're coming from. They've lived in them themselves. But I don't believe in one-size-fits-all solutions. And I want something that works in my town, that helps renters, that encourages people to be landlords, and encourages landlords to be good neighbors and helpful to those in need. And I'm not sure how we do that except more conversation, more interactions. To the vice mayor's credit, a few years ago, she said, we should be out there talking to the landlords, we should be having meetings, we should be networking with them to talk about how we can help our rental community. And that is before we did the rental control program. And that was a good idea. And I think we should do that. So I continue to be in favor of supporting renters within the context of the state system, but with the extra protections that we can implement through tenant protections, legal aid contributions, and a rental assistance program. I think we have the funds to do that. And if we're not having to fight appeals, and we're going to get appeals, as the fire insurance and the need to renovate your properties, comes forward. So I think you know where I'm coming down tonight.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I did confirm with staff, and you were correct. The funding that goes to Co-Site Hope through the CSFA program, rental assistance is included in what they offer.
Yeah. So, Vice Mayor, you seem eager to speak here.
Yeah. We talk about getting rid of 2 programs that are aiming to help the impoverished, the people living below the poverty line in our city. And because we don't like to hear from landlords complaining about how they're hurting, instead of looking at that as a separate issue and saying we need to do something about that, we eliminate these programs. And then when a family of 2 adults working a minimum of 2 jobs, often as many as 4 jobs, with 2 children who aren't being watched, who aren't being supervised, who aren't being educated in the way our children are being educated, the way we can afford to take care of our children, we're going to give them rental assistance once they get evicted. When they're really going to be homeless, we'll give them some rental assistance. That's laughable. That is not a solution to the problem. It's very nice that we've got a program like that. The Co-Site Hope is helping with a program like that. The legal aid is out there. None of those things replace what we're trying to do here, which is trying to continue to house our very, very poor. So I don't want to hear about rental assistance programs being an option to replace this. That's silly.
Well, thank you.
That's apples and oranges.
Thank you for sharing your opinion on that.
I'm not finished. I'm almost finished.
Please.
Please what?
Finish.
I'll finish when I'm done what I have to say.
Just remember that there are other people who would like to speak too. And don't necessarily denigrate something that somebody else says, okay? Thank you.
I'm not talking to you, Debbie. I'm talking to the audience about what the audience said.
I'm part of the audience.
Oh, my God. The other point I want to make is that this program has not cost the city an arm and a leg, that we haven't taken resources out of other programs in order to help the poor. We've taken very little out. It's cost us, what is it, $283,000 minus $157,000, $83,000 to date. So I'll stop for now.
I think what we'll do at this point is we'll start talking about specific options. And we're going to start with the status quo, which is the current programs. And could you please put the slide back up showing the options? Okay. Sorry. Okay. So the status quo is we have 2 programs. Option 3 is retain both programs. So let's start by addressing that. We've sort of touched on it in our comments, but let's discuss it head on.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Could I make a quick comment before
Sure.
we do that?
Please do.
For options 2 and 3, I think it's important to note that if one of those were the options chosen, staff would go back and develop some recommendations for how we would continue one or both programs, including looking at the fees. I think there was a question about how those fees were set. They were set before we knew actual costs. I think there's some adjustments that would need to be made there. Other things we've gotten feedback on. So I don't envision if we were to keep one or both programs that they would look exactly like they do today. I think we'd make some recommendations on how to modify them based on what we've learned in the last year and a half.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think if there's a council majority that wants to retain both programs, I think there's fixes needed on both of those. So we would want to come back and continue the discussion, but focused on that particular option.
That's right.
So thank you for pointing that out. Yes, okay. So Councilmember Johnson, I'm going to start with you.
What my thoughts are?
We're talking right now about option 3, retaining both programs. Is that something that we want to pursue or not? So we're going to move through the options.
Oh, I
and
got
have a
you.
discussion.
No, that's not something I was even considering right now. Or not considering retaining both programs, no. I was not looking at option 3, retaining both programs, no.
Yes. Councilmember Nagengast?
I already said option 1.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Councilman Johnson, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Do you want to retain either 1 or 2?
We're talking just 3 now.
And 3, it retained both programs, and that wasn't what I'm feeling right now.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I want to retain both programs.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Yes, option 3.
So I am against option 3, so I'll be on the record for that. Let's move on to option 2, which is repeal rent stabilization only. This time I'll start with Councilmember Nagengast.
Again, I'm option 1.
Councilmember Johnson. This is option 2, rent stabilization only.
The only thing I was thinking about on option 2 would be because we are actually going to be taking in funds to keep this program going to do the rental registry, but not doing, we're just doing it for rental stock and including housing elements and all that stuff, but we're also going to be generating, if we were to go into an elaborate rental assistance program with those fees, is what I was thinking. But I don't know if that's something we could talk about. That's what I was just saying. If we start putting some money away for that, then we could use that for our rental assistance. And option 2.
Okay, I think I hear what you're saying. Vice Mayor.
I'm not sure what you were saying. Patrick, could you repeat that?
It's the way I'm reading it and the way they're still going to be doing the registry. They're going to be doing all the things they normally do, but then we're going to be collecting fees, and there's going to be protection in AB, 1482. But if we were collecting the fees, why couldn't we have some of those fees for some type of rental assistance?
So can I sum up what I think you're saying? Are you saying that keep the rental registry and use the fees to provide rental assistance? Is that what you're saying? Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, the program is not generating income right now for rental assistance. The fees do not provide income for rental assistance. So that idea is lovely, but there's no money. I don't know where you're talking about getting the money from. If the fees right now are just running the program and barely running the program, there's not enough to add to a rental assistance program.
He's talking about the
Okay.
rental registry. Yeah.
No, I understand what he's saying.
All right. Stone, did you want to?
Madam Mayor, I think
Oh, sorry.
based on the recommendation, I think it's important we make a legal clarification on these fees.
I just wanted to cover that or explain that the fees are supposed to cover the costs of the regulatory program. So the fees are intended to just cover the costs of service. They're not intended to be income generating beyond the cost of service.
Yes, and that would be a nexus problem, probably.
So for option 2, it would just be the rental registration fee, which is $75 per unit right now. We would then need to evaluate what are our actual costs and set the fees appropriately, which would probably be lower than the $75 right now.
Thank you.
Make sure I understand. So if you repeal option 2 only, you would still have a registration program, which would be covered by the fees. Fees also would cover currently legal services. Isn't that what some of our fees do cover? Yeah, for the program?
So the services that we contract for with Legal Aid Society are actually a requirement under the rent stabilization ordinance, not the rent registry. And so those fees wouldn't be used for that, that program if we were to repeal rent stabilization. So the rent registry fees are intended to cover the cost of the registry itself and staff time administering it.
Got it. Right.
Madam-
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, if the direction is to come back with, to repeal the rent stabilization only, as the city manager mentioned, we would come back with an item to talk about the rent rent registry program and providing recommendations on improvements. And as part of that recommendation, we can look at, are there pieces of the rent stabilization program that could remain in place? There's been interest in the Legal Aid Society. How could that be incorporated into the rent registry program to allow that to continue to remain as part of the program? So that's something that staff could look at as. Right, that would require an update to the ordinance. But likely, all of this will be required to be through an ordinance. Any repeal would need to be done through an ordinance. Any update to the rent registry program would likely need to be done through the ordinance.
So let's take a focused poll here on the issue of keeping the rental registry and eliminating rent stabilization, and have a discussion about that. We've heard from Patrick, but we'll go back to you in a minute. Councilmember Nagengast.
I want to eliminate both programs and come back with new.
Okay. Councilmember Brownstone.
If we kept registration, I would need to know what we would put in place. Because then it keeps coming back to this 1482, which is what's bugging me. 1482 basically has, let's just say, it's saying you can increase rents by 5% a year, right? That's kind of the baseline. So how do we help people have that enforced if their landlord is raising above 5%? Because most people in this room said, yeah, 1482 provides enough protection. So let's say we agree with that. How do we make sure then that, does that then get enforced? And how? Do we provide help with that through the fees that are provided through registration? I need a little more, meat around that to see, are people getting help, both around eviction protections and rent protection?
So I think what you're asking is, how is 1482 enforced now? Do we enforce it? Does the county enforce it? How is 1482 enforced now? And does staff have an answer to that question?
The state enforces 1482. It's a state law. The city and county do not enforce 1482.
But somebody has to enforce it. How do they do that on a local level? Or do they not do it on a local level?
It's not done at a local level. Do you have?
No, it was just, can you agree?
Yeah.
So when there's a local law, it supersedes that state protection.
Yeah. Think of our a local minimum wage. We enforce our local minimum wage. If there's a violation of the state minimum wage, you have to work through the state to have that resolved.
So basically, it's complaint-driven to the state.
I would suspect. I'm not aware of any proactive programs to enforce 1482. Now, nonprofits locally obviously are interested in ensuring that all state laws are adhered to when it comes to vulnerable populations, but they're there to advocate and educate and support people in that process, not to actually do the enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
So it seems like that's the question we would have to further investigate with current legal service, and then for someone from the state who theoretically enforces this law, but I have no idea what the process is. Otherwise, it's like an illusory protection, which I keep hear a lot of people in this room bringing up. Is it a realistic protection or not? I don't understand. Okay, it's people. Okay, well, I will look it up, or we'll have staff look it up. But I need to know if that's a realistic protection or not. And I'm sorry, this isn't a dialogue now, but so I need to hear more about that. So if someone in Half Moon Bay has an issue, is it very difficult to enforce that? Or is it easy and you could get a hearing, or do you have to pay for it out of pocket? How is that really enforced, So that's still a mystery to me.
I'm assuming Legal Aid of San Mateo County probably picks up on some of those, but.
Yeah, and I mean, that's some of the work that the Legal Aid Society does countywide. So there's lots of, again, nonprofits that are interested in this, but I'm not aware of, just an easy way for a renter to pursue a claim against that.
I'm sorry, some people are holding up their phones. You have my email. Just send it to me. I will read it. I will go on AI and look at it, research it as well. So that's great. Okay, great.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, again, I come back to a picture that is all too commonly painted in this town, not by anybody in this room, but by the folks that are suffering, the people that are living, whole families in one room, sharing a bathroom with other families. And I'm not saying that any of the landlords that are here tonight are responsible for that. I wouldn't imply that. That would be saying that you are a bad people. And I don't believe that. I believe that you are having problems economically like everybody else is in this country, not just in this city. But to refer to a state law and say that the state law is going to help somebody when you and your husband each work 2 jobs and you've got 2 kids, or maybe it's just you and your husband working 1 job, gee whiz, and you work as a dishwasher and you say to your boss, I'm sorry, boss, I got to go to the state because I got to make a complaint today. It's crazy. It's crazy, is assuming that people have the wherewithal to do it, the time to go to Coastside Hope and ask them for help. And it's not just that issue, the state law issue. I think we're talking about trying to build affordable housing. We talk about it, we talk about it, and we talk about it, and we really work at it. But we haven't been able to do it. My idea for rent stabilization and for the rental registry was that it's a program that will be terminated when there's enough housing here, when people aren't suffering the way they're suffering currently. I have no interest in keeping this program going forever, but we've put 1.5 to 2 years into it. It's shown to be quite successful and not costly, and I'd like to see us give it another couple of years.
So you don't support option 2? Yeah.
I support option 3.
Yeah. I will say something about the rental registry. I'm not a fan of that either, especially now, given what's going on nationally. I don't like the idea of having a registry of people's names and addresses and personal information, and potentially, opening ourselves up to somebody saying, give me this information from the federal government, tell me who your tenants are. Who are you renting to? That's a serious problem as far as I'm concerned. So a rental registry is, to me, right now, is not protective of landlords or tenants. I think it's a problem. And the software, or the data people, Tolimi, I found their privacy policy very, I was not impressed, especially if they sell out to somebody else and transfer the data. I think it's problematic. So right now, I'm option 1 too, but I'm willing to hear, more in another quick round of comments. Councilmember Nagengast.
If we did option 1 or 2, could we, I think we should come back with something that fits our town. That's the way I believe in this. We could have a group with landowners who rent properties and tenants work together with staff and/or a council member liaison. It's a suggestion.
So right now, it sounds like that Deborah is definitely option 3. Robert is kind of on the fence and wants more information. Is that correct?
I'm for option 3 until we either come up with a plan. In other words, I don't want to get rid of these until we get that plan that you suggest. That's great. But I want to keep that in place until that time. If we want to put together, a working group to come up with an alternative, great. But I would not want to eliminate the options. I feel like we have 2 folks on option 1, 2 folks for option 3. And if I understand you, Patrick, you're for keeping the registration for now? I wasn't sure.
Well, the registration does bother me because on page 404, when you go through the whole thing and you read everything, what's the name of this company, Tuolumne or something? Tolimi. We have no control over and assume no responsibility for the content, privacy policies, or practices of third-party sites or services. So, that's, like you said, breach of, private information and what Evelyn's talked to us about. That does bother me. That does bother me because you're filling in all this stuff, and then you don't know where it's going.
Okay, I'm going to take a stab at a draft recommendation to staff. And that is, so there's basically 4 of us. There's 3 of us who want to eliminate the rental not rental registry, excuse me, the rental stabilization ordinance. But we are willing to hold on for the time being to get more information developed about what we might substitute in terms of assistance, whether it's rental assistance or a combination of rental assistance, looking at the menu of legal aid options, and going over again our tenant protections, because we're not saying we're throwing out the tenant protections ordinance. That will still exist. So what I'd like to do is recommend to staff that you bring back that information. So people want to find out, what would we replace it with? And let's have another discussion about that. Am I capturing that well? Councilmember Nagengast.
No. I guess I didn't understand. I'm trying to understand. So
That's fine.
you would bring back, have staff bring back, okay, we don't make a decision tonight?
Well, I think we are. I mean, there's a majority here that doesn't want rent stabilization.
Right.
The question is still more discussion about registry, although I don't like it, but what would it look like to do rental assistance in combination with our existing commitments with legal aid and tenant protections? Does that satisfy the group? I think primarily looking at rental assistance, which is what some cities are moving toward. There's several on the peninsula who do this. So I think it's clear that there's a majority that does not want rent stabilization.
Right. Would we look at trying to come up with a, rent stabilization or rent, common name, rent control, but a different ordinance that might fit our town?
We're not
looking
talking-
at what you suggested, the rental assistance and the.
It's basically, how do we help renters? If we're not going to do rent stabilization, what does the assistance look like? What do the protections look like? What is the regime that we're using to support tenants? And do we want to augment that? Change that?
Okay. All right. I could go with that.
I agree with that. Rental assistance that's the core that I'm trying to get here, that we have some vehicle in place for that. So yes, I'm in favor of that. And then also a clear path on who do you talk to, where do you go, so that we have those answers, so that we can have a pathway for people to go. Yes.
So are you talking about a subsidy to anybody who's poor because they're a renter? Are you talking about rental assistance when somebody gets evicted only? I don't know what you mean. And do you want the city to be putting out money to help? Do you think our city can afford to support the 30% of the population?
I wasn't getting down to I was asking for more information, is what I was asking.
Yeah, well, what I'm wondering is when you talk about rental assistance, Paul, Debbie, Robert, Patrick, what do you mean?
Well, I think it might take the shape of a block grant to Coastside Hope, who already has such a program, or maybe there's additional providers, whether it's Vincent DePaul or somebody else. It's a question of what would the program look like? What are other cities who do it? What are they doing? How much do we have that we can set aside for rental assistance? That sort of thing. We're going to be we're asking staff to bring back information.
Okay, if we are looking at something beyond rental assistance for evicted renters, I'd be interested in looking at such a program. But if all you're talking about is putting more money into something that helps people once they've really hit bottom, I'm not. And I don't think that I want the city to be taking on a huge financial obligation to be doing it.
Well, I think that's to be discussed, you know. but
Yeah,
the
I'm just
extent
giving
of
you
our-
my opinion about what I would like to hear.
Sure. I'm sure staff has heard that, yes. Does staff feel like they have direction?
Certainly on the rent stabilization piece, I'm a little foggy on how you'd like us to approach the rent registry. Certainly heard, comments against it and for it, but not clear on the direction at this point.
Well, we could have further discussion about it. To me, I wouldn't want to spend any more time on that, but if other people do.
I mean, I think a simple thing we could do that we could bring back with some of this other is evaluate what a standalone rent registry would look like, what it could accomplish, and what the fees would look like.
And I think you would want to look at, if we decide against that, what does unwinding that look like?
and
What
that's-
happens to the data? How do we unwind the program? I think we need to understand that, because that has to be done with grace, and efficiency and transparency is going to be really important. And, having dialogue with people about it. People are going to have questions. So yeah, there's going to be staff time devoted to this as well, and that's pointed out in the staff report.
I think staff is clear on the direction, and I think there's some urgency behind all this, because under the normal program, we start our ramp up in the next couple of months. So you'll see this back on an agenda in the next couple of months.
Thank you to Irma for a good staff report and a good presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate
I
that.
really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to, item 10A, which is Frenchman's Creek Park Phase 2 project update.
Reset. Wait a minute, you think? Yeah. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. I'm Dale Lita, interim city engineer. I'm joined tonight by Todd Seeley, our interim public works director.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time this evening, and our apologies in advance because we are going to be asking for some more recommendations from you guys.
So we're switching gears a little bit. We're going to talk about Frenchman's Creek Park Phase 2 improvements. Staff's been working on kind of retooling, rescoping this project since it last came to council back in April of 2025. So I'm going to give a little bit of background context. Talk about kind of recap on input from council that we received, kind of present the current site plan as we have it, and get feedback, see if we're headed in the right direction.
Dale, I apologize. Is there a way to switch the slides so we're just seeing the actual slide?
Okay. Mention of Frenchman's Creek Park goes back to the 2019 Parks Master Plan. Actually, I mean, the park predates that, but that was kind of the last iteration of the city looking at kind of improvements to this park. The master plan is actually pretty scant on details about kind of improvements. There's really 3 recommendations that were made in 2019. They included upgrading the existing amenities, increasing seating areas, and also replacing the play structure. So the first of those improvements was the replacement of the play structure, which occurred as phase 1 of, I guess, our Frenchman's Creek Park improvements. That was completed in 2021. moving on to kind of development of phase 2 of the park improvement plan. The city hired a landscape consultant. It was Gates and Associates to start developing a plan, and there was a big public outreach effort in 2022 to get input from the neighborhood and the general public. So there was a meeting at the park to discuss improvements, review concept plans. Some of the input that came out of that meeting included a desire from folks to separate the play area from where people traditionally take their dogs and play out in the lawn area, better fencing or security around the play structure. There was a request for a spring rider or like a low mount play structure. We call it the ladybug structure. There was also a request for a barbecue area and for drought tolerant landscaping. So that feedback was taken into the design development, which was presented at Parks and Rec Commission at later meetings, and also went out to bid in February of last year. Those bids came in much higher than the city had anticipated. So this was presented at council in April, and council provided a motion with direction to staff to reduce the scope back down to align better with our Prop 68 grant that we had received and allocated for this project, which was $185,000. So we've been working since then on, not continuously, but we've been working on rescoping this project to better align. These are just some pictures of the park today, actually from earlier this week. So what you see here is kind of the existing accessible parking immediately adjacent, the playground area, the existing accessible stalls non-compliant, the pavement's in really poor condition. It's not really the right size or shape to meet accessibility requirements today. Some additional feedback that came out of the 2022 workshop with the public, which actually was not incorporated into the prior plan. The prior plan was including diagonal parking, which members of the public didn't like because it pushed the parking and it pushed all the improvements further out into the lawn area and took more of the lawn area away. So there was a desire for folks to try and preserve more of the existing level lawn here closer to the park, the existing park improvements. Some of the other amenities out there, there are 2 existing concrete picnic tables out there. Neither of those meet accessibility requirements today. There's no opening in either table where you'd roll up a wheelchair to enjoy lunch or picnic. There's also a kiosk with a wooden bench, which was constructed as part of, I believe it was an Eagle Scout project several years ago. I mean, that student's probably graduating college now or something else. This is what the existing play structure looks like today. So those improvements, the new structure and the rubberized surface were completed in early 2021. There was a question about how this type of material would work if the state fire marshal adopted the new very high fire hazard zone map for this area, and whether that surface is still or if it's considered non-combustible or fire resistant. So these rubberized surfaces do have an ignition resistance test that they're required to pass to be utilized as a play surface. I did have a discussion earlier today with Coastside Fire about this specific material, and every material is a little bit different. That their opinion, without getting really deep into the review of it, is that this would qualify as non-combustible under the new fire marshal's regulations. Whereas something like a shredded mulch product, which you would typically use as an alternative, would likely not meet that requirement. And I should note that those maps are still under state review. They haven't been adopted yet, but.
Well, I thought that maps had been adopted, but the regulations had not been implemented.
Oh, my mistake. Thank you. And so that kind of leads us to our site plan today. I should note this is a work in progress. I don't think this is final. I think there's still work we can do to improve this. This was kind of an exercise to establish a benchmark cost for where we're at and see how well this aligns with what we think the park needs are and what we have budgeted for. So the big distinction between this current plan and the prior plan, so this plan doesn't add anything new to the scope that wasn't included in the 2025 plan. It takes things out from that scope. So specifically, the 2025 plan had called for replacement of all the existing concrete walkways, replacement of the existing concrete benches, and a significant amount of clearing and re-landscaping, new turf, and a lot of new landscape areas, in addition to diagonal parking spaces, a swing set similar to the one you see here, as well as a low spring rider, ladybug spring rider, it's called.
At this point.
Sure.
When you talk about the synthetic play area, how big an area is that? And where would that be on the map? You know, I understand people's resistance to synthetic turf onto like sports fields and things like that. That's kind of a big deal. I'm just trying to understand the scope of what you're talking about here and whether the...
So the synthetic, well, what is labeled here as synthetic play area is in fact a rubberized, it's a rubberized play surface similar to the existing play surface around the playground. And the area that's kind of hatched with it's really the area around kind of the swing set itself. And there's specific code requirements for fall protection in the landing zone within the swing, the active use area. And then there's a little bit on top of that just to help, provide that additional space and transition for kids, running around in that area. So this would be a rubberized surface to match kind of the existing. It's a poured in place material. It's kind of a two-part material.
But not turf, it's just the rubberized, yeah.
It's not turf.
Okay.
No. So with this plan, we did a rough order of magnitude cost estimate, which was included, and we looked at two alternatives kind of based on the April 2025 discussion at council, which included kind of looking at what we could do to divvy up the work, if there was any scope we could pull out for maybe a future project or just to look at separately. So we did look at providing kind of a drinking fountain as a separate scope item, and we looked at providing an additional accessible seating area or picnic bench as a separate scope item. And those prices were kind of included here with kind of some baseline options for materials. So specifically within our estimate, we had kind of the picnic area. We were calling for like a bark or mulch ground cover, which would be the most low cost pavement material that we would propose that would kind of get us through and meet accessibility requirements. Though I should note that that material also is probably more costly long-term from a maintenance standpoint and just having to replace it on a regular basis.
Plus it's combustible.
And
there are a lot of eucalyptus trees to the, yeah.
Correct. The other thing I want to note here is, although there was that specific request for a barbecue and it was incorporated into the prior scope, we've taken that out just for the same concern about fire hazard. Let's see. So where we're at today, and I have to apologize, there is a slight, I guess, clarification of the staff report. There's a figure that calls to total consultant cost to date, which it doesn't capture all the total cost to date because there's additional costs on top of consultants. But to date, we have about $300,000 left in our budget that's been allocated. That includes our $185,000 grant plus around $200,000 that's been allocated by the city previously for the project. With the kind of base site plan that we've put together and the water fountain and the picnic area, we're looking at an estimated construction cost around $200,000. That being said, I've also added kind of a menu of other additional things to consider, additional items to, which all add cost, but they're additional enhancements that could be incorporated into the site plan. And the thought was that, well, if you want to, it's really a question of how close you want to be held to that $185,000 grant number, or how much more on top of that we want to allocate. Those are currently we have budget that will capture all of these improvements. There's about another $50,000 in additional, I guess, bells and whistles that we would like to add if there is support for any of those. And I'm happy to kind of dive into the weeds on those specific items as.
Just because it's late in my mind, my RAM is diminishing. Just to simplify something, if we go with the 201,000 here, which includes both the picnic table and the water fountain, what, and all this stuff, you know, it includes the ADA park, all that. At that cost, what is not included anymore?
At the $200,000 mark.
Yeah.
So what is not included from the prior plan, and I can pull up the old plan if that's helpful to see also.
Just generally.
But it's, so things that are missing from the old plan include additional fencing, which replace some of the existing fencing adjacent to the accessible parking, the barbecue I mentioned. The most significant thing that's pulled out is the broad area of landscaping that was, so a lot of the existing turf out there would have come out and been replaced, new irrigation system, and a lot of decorative planting and boulders kind of closer to Russo Frances. The project as it was estimated previously was around $400,000 was an estimated construction cost. I think we've taken out about $100,000 in landscaping improvements and roughly $50,000 in kind of removal of site amenities, and also tearing out existing concrete that's not really in that bad of condition and putting in new concrete. So, and then there's about another $50,000 in these additional items that we've kind of also pulled out, but if there's support, we can incorporate those back in.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. A question?
Yep.
So the new picnic table, the ADA compliant, you know, tan bark there. What if you change that to a different material? I see you have the tan bark to concrete paving. Is that what that means, concrete paving? Would you put some, could you do something else besides concrete there?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, concrete would be my choice just because of the durability and how long it'll last. We could also look at decomposed granite, which also meets accessibility standards. It's a little bit more expensive and is more of a long-term, it's got more of a long-term cost. I think the decision on the material should also consider kind of the location. As the site plan is currently kind of laid out here, you can see it doesn't really make sense to have a picnic table on one side and then have the existing tables on the other side. What would make more sense would be to flip-flop and consolidate your picnic area. But that would put the new area kind of right in this is actually a low spot in the park right here, which gets a lot of runoff from both sides today. And so like, I would want something there that is gonna be, you know, more resistant to that. I think decomposed granite could work there, but then we're looking at additional drainage improvements, other things to consider.
Yeah, I from a maintenance standpoint, that's good that you're actually having maintenance look at projects, because that's something now they're going to have to maintain. I think, you know, if the concrete is, I always look at it as more practical, just because lack of maintenance is a higher initial cost, of course, but and you can do neat things with concrete. It doesn't just have to be a big slab out there. You could do different things with it, put a design, even color if you
Color
wanted
it,
to.
stamp it, whatever you wanted to do with it, right?
Yeah, there's some easy stamps that aren't really that much more of a cost that we could do. I would look in, to me, if you're asking me, I would look at that just because we also, it was brought up about a fire area there, and I just a little uncomfortable putting tan bark just from, I'm not saying.
Right. I think we would definitely want to advocate for some sort of hard surface at that location that's shown there. I mean, just a little tiny snapshot. So Ocean View Park is the most used park in the city. It costs us about a little over $9,000 every 18 months to replace the chips that we have in there. We have to get them, they're engineered, they meet certain specifications. We have to get a vendor to come in and blow them in with a big truck, right? It's in a very expensive proposition that we have to go through about every 18 months. So eliminating that out of it and having just to deal with that part of it by putting a hardscape in up front is definitely our recommendation.
All right.
The other thing I would note is that although on this kind of plan you see a different style picnic table, if we can certainly get an accessible concrete picnic table that to better match with the other existing tables if we're going to consolidate them. And we were just borrowing a graphic from the old plan. I do want to kind of point out at least one of the additional items to council, which is staff has received input from neighbors in that across the street from the park, both recently and last year as this was coming to bid regarding traffic calming and folks speeding on this part of Russo Francais. There's actually 2 speed humps or speed bumps currently.
Careful with humps. I called them humps. I got all kind of
speed cushions. There's 2 out there today, and you could see. It's kind of hard to see. This is from Google, so Highway 1 is to the left or the west there. But there's one as you come in, and then there's one past the park. They're roughly 700 feet apart, and if I'm following kind of practice standards, there would be room to put another one in and still meet. Typically 350 feet is the minimum you would want to see those. The 2 existing ones there, they're not very aggressive speed tables. They only come up about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches max. I think I would look at something that comes up a little bit higher. We typically try and come up 3 inches. And we provide curb cuts for fire trucks to get through. So we would need to run, if we were going to propose something like that, we would need to run it by Coastside Fire again. But I think there isn't, we don't want people speeding around parks. And I think if we're going to be out there paving it, it would be an opportunity to do that.
That was feedback you got from the neighborhood?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's something probably should look at. He's talking about the speed tables they put out there. Yeah.
So currently there are the existing, you're talking about in the proposed plan. In the existing plan, there are 3 places for people to sit. There are the 2 existing concrete picnic tables, and there's the existing wooden kiosk, which is currently located about kind of right here off the edge of the concrete. So in the proposed plan, we would intend to keep the existing concrete tables. If we want to incorporate an additional table either to the east or move that and reconsolidate it over here, we would add that. We also have a seat wall proposed here. There were 2 seat walls proposed in the prior plan, and we would move that existing kiosk, the Eagle Scout project. We'd relocate it probably kind of down to this area here, so we'd maintain that as well.
Deborah, sorry, your mic is not.
Who the park is for, right? If I wanted to go to a park at 83 years of age and not all that physically strong, I want a bench that I can sit on that's comfortable. I don't want to sit at a picnic table because it's too hard for me to get around the benches on a picnic table. That's one question. The next question is, who are the bike racks for? And are you talking about trying to encourage people who have bikes to come to the park and congregate? And who are those people? And what are they going to do when they get there? Somehow I don't get the picture altogether of what the whole function in the park is going to be, how it's going to be a place where people from the community or want to go gather and enjoy themselves.
So there was an additional picnic bench proposed previously, which is not currently in this plan. That is, or I'm sorry, a bench, just a comfortable wooden bench, I think, with a bag. They were not proposed with, they did not include a back. They were more seat wall-ish, kind of just a flat sitting. So, but that's certainly something we could incorporate, and there's an opportunity to do that. And I've heard although it's a beautiful kiosk, the Eagle Scout project, I've heard the bench is not the most comfortable bench. So, it would be an opportunity to incorporate something like that, and I think that's easily and cost-effectively done. As far as the bike racks, there have been existing bike racks here as far back as I can find. I mean, even predating the Parks Master Plan, there was an existing bike rack out here as early as like 2008. And so we're kind of maintaining that. I think the Parks Plan also, one of the key elements was to encourage trying to get away from the island parks that we have that you can only drive to, and creating other, opportunities for other modes to get there. So I think that kind of, not that we have a separate bike path here to get here, but it's an amenity serving someone other than, people driving their cars.
Yeah, I get that, but I still don't know if you're going to be using the bike racks. I mean, I don't know, were the bike racks always used a lot in the past? Yes. And who used them? Kids. We have a ton of kids. I'm sorry. Who used the bike racks?
So in the initial outreach meetings that I participated in several years ago, the feedback was that the neighborhood really uses this park, and it is a place where families and kids can go. And there are many families, including kids, that ride their bikes to this park.
Okay, I get it then. That makes sense to me. Okay, yeah, I think, trying to consider elderly people is maybe a good idea. And then the other thought that I had was, if you're going to have benches or picnic tables, you want them to be close enough to the kids' play equipment so that the parents can be watching the young kids on the play equipment. You don't want it separated, the two things separated. They need to be close enough together.
I was going to ask, where do parents currently sit who are watching kids on the play structure? Because I know they do. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah, so currently you really can, there's only 3 spots to sit. It's either of these 2 concrete tables or the existing kiosk bench, the existing Eagle Scout project, which is right here and oriented towards the play structure.
The Councilmember Brownstone was asking, is there a ledge or a curb around the existing play structure? Or is that just a flat curb, or is that what? Do you have that picture? Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, so it's just a flush curb that kind of retains the edge of the pour-in-place rubberized material. It's not, there's no enclosure or barrier to it. You just walk right across it.
Yeah, that could definitely be improved because it helps build community. Parents are around, sitting on benches, whatever, and they're watching kids at the same time. It would be terrific. But I'd want to hear more from the community members if that's something that would sound like a good priority at some point.
Councilmember Johnson, do you have any clarifying questions before we go to the public?
Yeah, I was just on the tan bark for the fire reasons. I was thinking about that. And then number two, if I were to bring my daughter to that with tan bark, it wouldn't work. The wheelchairs would just stuff away. So that wouldn't work in my idea at all. Definitely would like to see not just one bench, but some kind of like more seating where, you have a group on the bench and maybe you have two over, like if you had lawn chairs, kind of an idea, but you can bring your own lawn chairs. But what Vice Mayor is saying, I agree, something more in that area. And then the other thing is on the synthetic play surface, what color is that?
I mean, there's a variety of colors we can get. We would choose something that I don't think we were going to get a perfect match to the existing surface, but we'd choose something to complement.
Like a brown, dark brown, or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have a plan? Are we going to do tan bark? Are we going to go cement, or is that to be determined? We're still
I think we're going to get rid of the tan bark, right? Didn't we decide
We'd
that?
like to hear your solid guidance on that, but that is the thought, that we would like to get rid of that for sure.
Something that's wheelchair accessible for sure. I do like the stamped concrete. I do like this, you can go with the brown slate. Have you ever seen that? It looks really nice. DG does work if you do it right.
Just not tan bark.
Yeah, so what we're looking for is I guess, number one is a sense of how much more in addition to kind of the $185,000 grant council is comfortable spending on this and which amenities we want to include. So it sounds like tan bark's out. I'm hoping we can get some input on some of the other items kind of on there.
Some public comment, and then I'll let you summarize the other items you were just
Perfect.
mentioning. Yeah. So the first speaker is Irma Morowitz. Okay, Randy?
Thank you, staff, for the opportunity to comment on this. As Irma mentioned, we live right across the street from maybe just west of the play structure. So what I took a call, or Dale took my call a few days ago and said this would be an ample opportunity to speak because of
Could you get a little slightly closer to the mic or lift it up to your head
Sorry
a
about
little
that.
more? No, that's great. Just you can lift it.
And so my main concern when I was speaking with Dale, as he mentioned earlier in the discussion, is speeding past the park. We live at 608 Rousseau Francais, so it's pretty much directly across the street from the park. And we've lived in the neighborhood almost 8 years now, and we've noticed the increase, and I don't know if it's from food delivery or the younger demographic as the neighborhood has evolved, but speeds have been increasing. And, we have, I think everyone that lives in Rousseau Francais, the neighborhood, likes that small town feel of the neighborhood. We don't have sidewalks, which is unusual, but my wife and I, we walk the neighborhood every evening, and that's just a nice thing to do in our neighborhood. But we are increasingly concerned about the speed. Our neighbors to the west, they have 2 young kids, and they tell their kids, be careful when crossing the racetrack, as they refer to Rousseau Francais, because the cars are going increasingly faster there. And I've made requests. The speed cart's been brought out a couple times, and that works as long as someone's watching that speed cart. And then when the speed cart goes away, the reluctance to obey the speed limit goes away as well. So what I've done personally is I bought some traffic delineators, purchased some signs from Amazon, said slow down, speed limit 15 miles an hour. I put them out in front when I'm working in my front yard because I don't like to be buzzed by a speeding car. And just the other day, my wife and I were out, And this has happened a couple times now. People with young families that are playing at the park, they pull the delineator with the speed limit sign off my front yard and put it out in the middle of the street like I do when I'm there working in the front yard. And they know that that's a deterrent to the people that are going up and down Rousseau Francais. As Dale mentioned, that's one way in and one way out of our neighborhood. So just the neighbors taking my traffic delineator because they know it works. You know, God forbid that, you know, some kid runs out in the street and a car's speeding by. I would like the city to consider the fairly low cost of a speed table, speed bump, whatever we're going to call it, as an addition to this project to protect the users of the park, which we all want people to be safe. And I think a physical deterrent like a speed bump or a speed table, whatever we're going to call it, would be a fairly low cost considering what the cost of, you know, the price of someone getting injured, hurt, is much higher than the cost of a speed hump. So I'd like the staff to consider that, adding that to the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Irma Morowitz?
Hi, everybody. Long night. Get to go home soon. Anyway, so I live on Terrain. I've lived here about 30 years in the neighborhood, and I have seen changes where kids, you know, they're small and they grow up and they drive. And also, I think since COVID, there's been an increase in people driving through, taking minutes to get somewhere really quickly. I've been almost hit coming out of my driveway. I was backing out, and someone came around the corner. I was trying to get out of reverse, and this lady almost drove into me. And I announced it on Nextdoor. I didn't mention the name. I just asked her to slow down, and she identified herself, saying she was a grandma with kids in her car. But yet, people go fast, and I don't know where we could address the rest of the neighborhood because there are no sidewalks. And the problem is people do zoom by. I mean, the other day, it was nighttime. Somebody must have been gone 40, 50 miles. Just, you know, some sports car really quickly. And there's a neighbor up on Rousseau. He was changing his mailbox, got hit, was hospitalized. So, I mean, I don't want someone to be hurt. And we have a lot of kids on bikes. And I don't know if I have to address that to the council or, to, you know, somewhere in the city or get a petition. And I know we have to get a certain amount of people maybe to agree about speed bumps, but I'd like to see more of them in the neighborhood. And, you know, we yell at people, you know, please slow down, and then, you know, they start swearing at us. So what we've done, you know, put up extra signs. I mean, it's not really working, you know, and so we're kind of like the bad guys. So I don't know, any help would be helpful to alleviate that situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any hand raised online, but if you're online and would like to address this item, please raise your hand now and you will be unmuted. Raise your hand if you would like to address the Frenchman's Creek Phase 2 park improvements. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for deliberation. So I would ask a question. Is there anything that could be done as part of this project to slow the traffic down that's maybe next to the park or before and after the park or whatever?
It seems like we really benefit from just having one speed limit throughout the entire Frenchman's Creek, right? Is there any area where people should be driving more than 15 miles an hour? Necessary. Actually, you know, this is a 15 mile per hour zone, and, you know, we set it up like that. I can't tell if you're shaking your heads yes or no, if that's right, because I don't know where these folks are coming from who are doing 40 or 50 miles an hour. Yeah, because I know I'd be one of those people yelling. I'm one of those
To
yellers
answer
on my own street.
the question about an easy fix, I think there is a fair amount of speed bumps, especially like on the back side of the neighborhood. They're kind of like the bolt down type, if you will, for lack of a better term. They're just plastic that we would just adhere to the street either through lag bolts or adhesive or a combination
Yeah.
of both. Maybe just adding one of those could be a possibility for this project.
Well, I think there's agreement here that we do need something to reduce the speed in Frenchman's Creek, whether it's speed bumps, making a particular speed limit zone. I don't know how hard that is to do. So it's both physical and legible, So in terms of moving things along, we can have this conversation here around, where we are here. Because we have a few options. I think we've heard that benches. How much does a bench cost approximately? One bench, let alone three.
Well, that is a very loaded question. It depends on how nice you want this bench to be. Typically, so if you've been out on the coastal trail, the benches that we have along the coastal trail, those are in the $1,700 to $2,000 range, somewhere around there.
$1,700 to $2,000?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Feels like a bargain these days. So that's
To be fair, we haven't bought some in a while, and inflation may have caused that price to go up a little bit, but we buy in bulk typically when we buy those.
And those are those wood or they're artificial, right?
No, they're plastic.
Right, so they're weather resistant.
Exactly. They last for a long time.
Okay. So, okay, that's great. Speed bumps would be nice. I think having the fountain and the picnic table. So my question now is, do we as a council approve a certain amount of budget for a number of these items now? Do we say, because I know this issue of parks has come up a lot, and there's this real consensus over the years that, when it comes to people's mental health, parks are critical. And we've supported a lot of our parks throughout the city. This is a very family-focused neighborhood. People are very involved in their community there. Have a fantastic CERT program, by the way. Our budgets, do we approve 100,000 now? Do we approve going up to the 200, 1,000, and then come back incrementally in 4 or 5 months and see how our budget's doing with the Finance Committee? I think things are looking positive, but put this on like a priority list. That way, budget's better, we add more of the items. So that's generally what I'm thinking here. But I'm such a proponent of parks, I'm ready to just go for it now because it's a beautiful park as it is. But so what are others thinking?
Yeah. I like the idea of increasing the budget. I think that's fine. I'm a fan of parks. But as I mentioned before, I'd like it to be user-friendly. And the current configuration is not to me. So I'm thinking in terms of benches with backs on them. Bike racks, I don't know why we need to upgrade the bike racks right now with a limited budget. That would seem to me low on the priority list, but maybe I'm wrong. Is there?
The bike racks actually, since this was originally scoped, we did get another grant from San Mateo County Transportation Authority for, I think, 12 or 13 bike racks at all of our different parks and community facilities. So we actually have grant funding separately to pay for a bike rack.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about that part.
It's a small cost item either way, but we don't have to pay for a bike rack out of this budget.
How many benches do you want?
Well, I don't know. 4 benches?
So 2 additional.
5 benches?
2 additional benches on top of the 2 that are already there.
The picnic benches are not benches. they're a table where you can sit at the table, but they're not a bench, and so they serve a totally different function. They're not places where people will sit and gather to have conversations. They'll sit down and eat or play a game or something, but, you know.
Let's say 5 for now, and it wouldn't cost more than $10,000. Frankly, I was worried you're going to say $3,000 or $4,000 a bench, because who knows what they cost these days. But yeah, 5 benches, you know, in a nice, would be nice, even number.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm thinking is, we talked about replacing the current mulch bark, tan bark, whatever it's called, with something more permanent. It sounds like concrete is a really easy thing to maintain. How easy would it be to use rubber that you have, like the rubber that you have under the kids' playground, play equipment?
So the rubberized surface is fairly low maintenance. I should note it's about twice the cost of concrete, though. It's the most expensive line item, and that's part of the reason why we had pulled out the Ladybug spring rider from kind of the base scope. Is not from the structure itself, but the play surface around it is extremely expensive.
Or maybe as part of the landscaping plan, there could be a community garden. We have some really cool gardening groups actually here in the city who could come and actually show people how to do a garden. Some of it could be some just beautiful landscaping of flowers. There could be a couple of vegetables, but something that the community could decide, something like that. We get more input, teach kids how to grow a couple of things. I mean, there are could be some potential around that.
Like some raised beds or something?
Raised beds, yeah, would be another option.
I was going to say, if there was an interest in like a community garden, we'd probably look at finding space for some raised beds. We would need incorporate additional hose bibs. You might even want to look at some kind of little shed for folks to store tools or equipment in to help.
It sounds like a phase 3.
That's what I'm
That
thinking.
sounds like a phase 3.
Yeah, I mean,
It's simple to put the beds in, but all the stuff that Councilmember Nagigas is mentioning, like the infrastructure that we would have to improve, the storage that we would have to do, and then, let's be honest, there's probably going to be some public work maintenance involved in this too, like making sure that everything's done. It's a much bigger lift, and definitely worthy of looking at it for like another phase of this
and
project.
it's a great idea, and I think that's something, I know there's another park in Magnolia, you know, that's been talked about there too, but maybe that is another phase that happens, but I look at the tan bark area. I'd rather concrete it in there, but whatever works best.
I would defer to others on this location for a community garden as well, just because of the trees. I don't know if it gets enough sun, because the trees primarily reside along the creek, and if the sun is not following the right trajectory, it just might not get enough sun to properly grow plants in that area. That's something that I'm not a subject matter expert on by any means, but we would want someone to weigh in on that for sure as well too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the way this plan is oriented, south is actually page up towards Frenchman's Creek, which, as you know, is a very dense canopy of trees following that whole area. So I think solar exposure here it would take some more study to see if there's enough sun.
How about a bocce ball court?
And the other
That's phase
question I
4.
had was, why are you talking about more fencing?
So
where and why?
Yeah, I can walk through that a little bit. So on this plan, the existing park, go back. You could see in this picture on the right, there's this existing split rail fence that kind of runs along the current accessible parking stall there. In the proposed improvements, this would come out and this all gets redone. But the proposed plan doesn't have any replacement fence here currently shown. And I think, there's an extra cost there, but to run a new fence kind of along, let's call it this edge like this, just to help discourage kind of kids from running out into that parking area from the swing set.
We have about a little over 15 minutes until we'd have to take a motion to extend the meeting. So I'd like to focus our attention on specific directions at this point and wrap this up because we have just a couple more agenda items, even though they probably won't go anywhere. And I'm getting hoarse, so Robert, could you like distill your thoughts into a motion? Or direction? Not a motion, but direction.
Well, I certainly don't want to halt any of the current construction plans that we have. So I would like to make a budget motion that we increase the budget at this point, because I do think we have a potentially healthy revenue stream coming in. Increase the budget back up to, was it 280,000?
So currently, the project budget was not reduced under the April motion from council. The motion was to align the scope to better follow the $185,000 grant. So there's still funds within the capital project. There's still about $300,000 in capital funds allocated to this CIP number.
So what are the limitations then?
Up to that $301,000, it's up to council.
Okay. So I think we could incorporate then some of the direction we've heard. We'd like to see around 5 benches, something to deal effectively with the speed issues. And you might have a few thoughts, but it could be some signage, speed limits, speed bumps, all the above. We love the idea of a water fountain. Keep that in there. Picnic table, what else?
Make sure we get rid of the chips, wood chips.
Yeah, make sure we get rid of the wood chips.
Have a doggy doo-doo bag container thing?
Yes, that's it. That is included already.
Okay.
Okay. And then explore what may or may not be feasible in terms of some landscaping based on climate, based on community preferences. We can survey the community, what they might be interested in supporting, and what that might look like. That would be great.
Works for me.
Can I throw one in there? Colored concrete.
Colored concrete.
It doesn't cost that much. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
Understood.
Nice.
Brown, light browns or something. You guys can look at it, but I've done it all through my house. So it looks way better than concrete.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Polka dots.
Polka dots. Okay. I like it. We're
Snack
thinking outside the
bar.
box now.
Okay. Any particular better way to word all that?
No, I think this is a direction.
No.
This isn't a motion, so I think
Okay.
we've got what we need. One area I just want to be clear is typically we would just go out for RFP and pursue this. Do you want us to bring this item back one more time before we do that, or do you think, I think we've got enough direction to just run, but I just don't want to get ahead of the council. Okay.
Yeah, I'll come back, yeah, but do come back with an update of what the images would look like with the benches and this and that. That would be great to see, just so we can get everybody.
Maybe we'll just do a CM update
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah, that sounds great. And so as we're working towards a bid package, we could provide a CM update with a revised site plan and some updated estimated costs as we're working towards putting together an advertisement for construction. Our hope would be to get this out to bid and complete improvements this summer, so.
Thank you both for working with us. Thanks for some community input and support tonight. That's really helpful. And, talk to neighbors, see what else. I'm happy to come over and we can have a meeting all together and talk about it and let everyone know how it's going. So that's great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 11, commission or committee updates.
No updates. We have a rec commission meeting next Wednesday evening. They'll be talking about their priorities for the year, and we'll have the superintendent joining us to talk about some of the work that they're doing at the school district.
Sweet. Item 12 for future discussion, possible agenda items. Item 13, city council reports. I'll just have one about Sam. Looks like we're going to be moving to just one meeting a month at Sam instead of two. And that is good news. That's good news, yes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Switch those two items. Nice to end on a positive.
Yeah, yes.